I'm the universe is me, and if I just listen, then that is the ontology.
You started off by making another should statement again, another prescription. You said they should want to live. Now, how do you ground that? Is it grounded in the naturalistic fallacy that what is natural is good, or is it grounded in some other higher abstract philosophy? Like, where does that come from?
As far as what I know, that when humans want to die or want to die on large scale for a myriad of reasons that don't seem to be psychologically healthy, right? That's what I'm talking about. For some people, whether it's psychologically healthy for them to head towards that direction. What I know, that when humans, they got stage 4 cancer, they've accepted death, they totally are in the process of it, and they're just trying to work on that, and there's nothing anybody else can do. That's fine. And as to each their own, I actually don't really care. It's their life, right?
Yeah. So,
but I'm talking about on a larger scale, psychologically, if humans were committing suicide at a very high rate, wouldn't you be concerned?
You just made another prescriptive claim that this thing is fine that you just outlined. Now others are going to disagree with and say that's not fine. So how would you argue to them that your worldview of that being fine is actually the good life?
Because only cis deal in absolutes. So if they can't, if they say, no one on this planet could think that suicide is a healthy thing, and no one is a healthy thing, like that's fine.
Grim, no one mentioned absolutes there. It's not that they're absolute. They can still be fallibilistic about their position on what the good life is, and challenge you and say, no, those people who are suffering and reaching the end of their life, like let's say they shouldn't have assisted death medically, they should continue to try and live their life out.
I mean, it's a little different than what I was talking about, so I really don't have an answer for you because you're talking about something a little bit different. So I'm just taking the interpretation wrong, and you're going to put it to a different landscape. So
right. Well,
feel free to somebody else ask the question. That's fine when it comes to assisted suicide and people working in the good life. Like that's not really what I was talking about, but it's fine.
Yeah, I'm just asking how you ground what you think is okay. That's the question.
How do I ground what I think is okay? Well, What I think is okay to me based on my own values and my own ethics, and I don't expect anybody else to feel the same.
Well, don't you hold other citizens accountable to what you think is good? Like if a citizen starts, stomping their dog to death in front of you just for fun, and they're videotaping it to put it on YouTube, and you have this knowledge,
sure,
you're going to feel the need to intervene, I'm sure. And then the question is, why do you think it's a good thing to intervene?
No, it depends on the hypothetical. It depends on a lot of, like, I often quantify and evaluate certain evidential standards that are in front of me at the moment, along with certain historical standards. So it's like if I saw a guy doing that on YouTube and then I saw him on the street and that was the guy, right? Depending on the situation, I'm either talking to him or I'm physically, putting my hands on him.
Yeah,
but it depends on the hypothetical.
So I understand that you're going to act, but you just said that you're going to assess these things as they happen. What metric are you using to assess them? Like, do you use a well-being metric? Like in this case, does the dog's well-being trump the person's desire to want to make a viral video of them, stomping their dog?
Yeah, I don't have a name for it. These are like just there's a phenomenology of empathy. There's a phenomenology of well-being there. There's also the phenomenology of violence that I don't like. So there's a lot of interesting plays when it comes to certain parts of my brain that I don't really have names for. But if you want to call them systems, that's fine. I just have certain values and ethics that I don't expect anybody else to truly have exactly like my own. That would cause me to probably intervene in something like that. Or maybe some people would just keep walking on by and try to call the police or do nothing.
I guess I would like to stretch the point here on some level at least. I guess the question that I would also like to know is why do you believe, or why do you define these things as you do? Are you the thing, the entity, or whatever that defines? Yeah. I think you know what I mean.
Because I have blind faith in that manner. I feel like it because I want to, because I will. And I don't know what drives me. I don't know what that is. And if I'm part of a system, part of a universe, then clearly it's not. I'm part of the whole thing. So it really doesn't even matter if I'm by myself. Something that's been rattling in my head a lot is kind of my old Buddhist philosophy teachings when I was practicing forms of Buddhism, this kind of westernized, I can't remember the style it's called here in America, but it's a type of Buddhism. It's not true Buddhist teachings, but there's these so there's the Eightfold Path, which is the quick path to kind of these Buddhist teachings. And one thing that was really interesting, I'm seeing a lot more as I get a little older, is that humans really do recognize each other as themselves. It's almost as if like I am Travis and Travis is me. I'm just another version of Travis if Travis did what I did. I'm another version of you and you're a version of me if I was born in your shoes doing what you're doing. Like there's these recognizable things, right, of humanity that we all are part of each other. And then the Buddhists take it a little farther and say, well, that's just life, man. Like we're all like one thing in the universe. And you could take that to all these interesting scales. But one thing I really am starting to recognize through forms of really good empathetic practices, because when you do practice stoicism, you also got to practice some good empathetic practices, is that people are kind of like you, and you kind of like to see them and you and them, and you kind of see like, hey, we're all kind of like this one species, which is very interesting, and we're all these versions of each other in a lot of ways. So many characteristics. I would argue that there is almost nothing I could not find in common with any human on the planet. Even if they were deaf, blind, and dumb, I could still find something in common with them. And that's really interesting.
Anyone else have any thoughts on that? Nada? Everyone's gun shy.
I mean, I think one thing I was thinking about is if we're going to talk about like what is the good life, and like specifically on the like suicide thing and the wanting to live thing, I think that we could, if we're going to make any qualifications about a good life, I think that living is probably part of the good life. Now, maybe you could argue that a bad life is antithetical to a good life, and if you are living a bad life, being dead might be better than not having a good life. But it would seem to me that the good life implies that you're alive, so you probably shouldn't, do that kind of thing.
You're getting to my two fundamental presuppositions that inform my ethical, moral metric, that is well-being, that life is preferential to death. I think almost everyone would agree on that as a good starting point when we're examining what the good life is, and also like not just living, but living healthy. So health is preferential to sickness. So I think if you build a model of what I currently call well-being to give you the best chance at living instead of dying and being healthy instead of sick, you should look out into the world and see if there's any way that we can game this system better to make those two fundamental presuppositions more achievable than not. And then, and by well-being, as always, I mean physical, mental, and social health. So being alive, when we're looking at well-being, because when you're dead, you're no longer being, so you can't have well-being, as Matt Dillahunty famously said to Jordan Peterson. That's the kind of well-being those of us who talk about well-being as a moral metric that's what we're speaking about. We're talking about physical, mental, and social health. American Dream on YouTube, thanks for your comment, says, do all birds have something in common? If so, why is it so interesting that all humans have things in common? Anyone want to tackle that question? Do all birds have something in common? Sure. Yeah.
Everything. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't even know. I'm not really sure what to say on that one. I mean, the only thing that separates us psychologically, like psychiatrically, is the pattern and connections of our neurons. Because in terms of connections between neurons and synapses, we have, tens of billions and billions and billions, if not trillions of connections between small parts in our cortex that's very densely folded and packed. That's really all that separates us as humans. Otherwise, we're almost basically identical. So
we also don't need each other.
Would also be identical. But I mean, in a way, the bird is made out of the same shit that we're made out of. So, I guess you could go full Buddhist or full non-dualist and say, I am that bird in not just a metaphorical way, but in an actual substrate way. I guess you could get there.
Also, birds is a much larger category than Homo sapiens. Birds is like multiple families, I think, or more, whereas Homo sapiens is one specific genus and species.
Yeah, we've all
I'm
seen
not sure if that's where he's going.
We've all seen the
Can we cook and eat monkey?
We've all seen the comparisons to from crocodiles to birds, and the memes that go around where the dinosaur is thinking, "I wonder what our ancestors, how powerful our ancestors will be," and then it goes to like some toucan bird or something.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, evolution is not like it's not like always reaching a particular goal. The niches can change and can lead to new lineages and even new species.
My comment is more to get people to think that a lot of people get caught in their own head and their own ego and start to separate themselves from the universe rather than realize that like you are the universe. Like if really everything is kind of what it seems to be in front of you, then you are that universe. You are part of that echo. And so a lot of it is about, there's these teachings about like awakening like your third eye, which has some truth to it, right? We think we only had so many senses, but it turns out we have a lot more, and some we can't even define because we are truly in tune with these things biologically. And it's part of that I start to recognize, where things like empathy really do take hold. There's forms you can have apathy. I can wish well-being on a lot of people, but practicing well-being is a different thing.
What do you mean by third eye?
I mean, realizing that you have more senses than, what science really tells you. Science is discovering a lot of these things, but people who are trying to figure out the ontology of the universe, they really have to have an explanation for, why am I able to kind of sense these things and feel these things? And what are these sensations and this, sensory information? And it's really it's that thing is that you're in the mix. You're in that, you're in that stew of life. You're in that stew of the universe. You're on this, planet of different elements. And you're part of that too. It's interesting. And there's more that you can kind of hear and understand. One of those tests that came out recently was kind of a trip where they said they were testing on if you can sense people entering the room or somebody behind you. I think it was like, can you sense people behind you? And people had that sense of like, if somebody's watching me, and it actually turns out to be true. They did a test on it, and it was like, yeah, actually people can sense in a form. It's correlation, of course, but it is interesting where a lot of people think that we have a lot more senses than we realize.
So you're saying that third eye is basically that extra set of innumerable senses that they're so vague that we can't really test them very well, but we all know they're there, kind of thing.
It's a so-called
it's like this. It's like the brown eye. Well, it's like or being with a family member or a really good friend, and you, as soon as you think something, they think something. Like your brains are like just in pattern, like just the same pattern. It's like, yeah, I know you're thinking the same thing I am. Like these senses, that we don't really have definitions for, but we know are there.
They just had a guy on one of the podcasts talking about that, and I think it was like 55% versus 45 identified someone looking at them. if they had to say whether they were looking at them or not without seeing them. Some weird study they did. They have a fancy name for that type of effect.
That's cool, though. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there has to be some natural explanation for that if it indeed is a phenomena that has a statistical bearing on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm studying right now, and I'm trying to find more evidence on it. But scientists are literally, it's like just fresh off the paper, trying to get peer reviewed. But so there's these proteins in your brain that they noticed, they never really noticed before, but now they're noticing now, is that they're changing based on the vibration of the universe. And what we've known from just from the EKGs that we've had in the past, what is it, like 10 years or whatever, where we can start to really map some of these things, we can show that these weird vibrations and the way this protein is working is possibly what's causing thought. And it's almost like, okay, that's where thought comes from. And then there's this part of my brain that recognizes the thought to figure out what to do with that thought. Sometimes that thought just wants to run right to my mouth, which is interesting, and my brain allows that to go. But it's like these thoughts that are occurring, and it's almost like, well, it's not like the universe isn't intentionally sending me that, right? Like, it's just a protein off of vibration. Like, is that what's going on? Or is the universe intentionally like, no, I'm going to make this guy think of naked clowns for some odd fucking reason? You're like, what the fuck, the universe?
Do you think the universe has intentionality?
Has contingentality?
Intentionality.
Oh, intentionality? I don't know. I'm agnostic to that one. I have no idea.
I just thought I'd ask. So, like, what do you mean when the universe is vibrating? Like, I understand, like, at the quantum level, everything is waves and particles. So you could metaphorically say everything is vibrating and moving together. But what do you mean the universe is vibrating?
It's out of chaos comes order, out of order comes chaos. And so there clearly
like
is
a kind of thing?
Yeah, so the paradox simply shows me that there's a phenomenon we don't understand because it's a paradox. And it's like, well, how do you get so much order out of so much chaos? And it's like, well, that actually comes from order, which comes from chaos. And you're like, what the fuck?
Well, I mean, some would make the argument that there's a vicious circularity there when you say, oh, not you, but the general you. Fuck, I forgot what did you just say?
Controlled chaos or not, really.
Yeah. So basically, chaos or randomness, to me, would logically seem or reasonably seem to be just an order that we don't understand yet. You know what I mean? Just some kind of deeper, more complex order that we haven't, that seems random, but is not. Could be like there's this idea, and I know you know, Graham, called the hidden variable theory. A lot of quantum physicists don't necessarily take this seriously, but there may be hidden variables that might allow us to know position and momentum simultaneously. So, you know, just some food for thought.
We talk I've heard humans, believers talk about fine-tuning the universe, meaning there's a bunch of dials and a bunch of knobs. And so if the universe is going to start sending fucking asteroids at Earth and smashing things into, billion, trillion pieces and destroy life and do weird shit, somebody touch a knob to do that? Right? Is that something that someone said, well, we understand that we don't want to send asteroids everywhere and kill everything. We just want to touch the knob just a little bit to go through these certain things. It's like, geez, so there is that fine-tuning aspect. But the fine tuning also includes babies with cancer. So it's like, Jesus. So when you say intentionality, I go, I don't really know about that.
I get you. If we say fine tuning, we're already implying that there was a tuner. So I don't know about that. But as far as like fine tuning goes, there's the anthropic principle, which states that we're in a universe that can be observed because we are the observers observing it. There's going to be some possible universe where obviously humans come about on the planet Earth, but there could be a possible universe where the constant of gravity and the constant of light are different, and there may be some other life form or consciousness or whatever questioning, wow, look at these constants. If they were any different, we wouldn't exist. Yeah. And of course, this is just speculation. I'm talking about possible universes. Who knows? So,
yeah, I mean, I don't find myself to be the observer. I find to be part probably the experiment. I'm not the observer. I don't think I'm the observer. I understand the context of where you're putting it, but if I'm saying, listen, like, what do I observe? I observe this much of the light spectrum. I observe this much of the universe, and it's not a lot. So I guess I'm not a really good judge when it comes to the universe. So to put me in the, so I understand that I can.
Let's say you're not great at it, and I'm not either. But would you say you at least observe gravity happening to objects? I mean, you do observe that, right?
Yeah, but what doesn't?
What's that?
I said, yeah, but what in the universe doesn't experience the gravity?
Well, right, but are they is a rock observing gravity?
Probably.
Okay.
Whether we call it conscious or not, and we equivalent that to a human, kind of, panpsychism. It's like a tree. A tree observes gravity, right? I mean, you'd say a tree observes gravity. It feels gravity. It experiences gravity.
I don't know if it can sentiently or sapiently observe gravity.
Some things need eyes, I guess, but what are eyes if not just another way to absorb light and energy and then try to translate it to some sort of object in your mind, right?
Yeah.
Could like a rock collapse a wave function?
Yeah, that's the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, that we
really big rock
function by observation. I don't know the substrate of the rock. I don't know the substrate of the rock that would allow it to have thought, because the only thought that we know of comes from brains. So maybe the rock is perceiving something, but I don't, without communication.
I think the rock is doing what the universe wants it to do based on the laws that the universe has for it, and we're doing what the universe wants us to do based on the laws that the universe has for it. And whether that's just universe spilling out on the floor by accident or whether it's intentional, it's definitely a good question. I don't know. But, it's a hard one. Don't really.
I'm confused. So how is anything doing what the universe wants to do if we're agnostic on the claim of the universe having intentionality?
Because I feel like I'm subject to it.
Yeah, wait.
Like what part of me is not the universe?
I was gonna say the rock is an object which is subjected to gravity, and the experience of that subjectivity is what we call a subjective experience. And so the question is whether or not rocks have subjective experiences, but is there an objective way to answer that question? I don't.
It's very possible. Yeah, it's very possible they have experiences, but they'd have to demonstrate it to us before we could make the positive claim, right?
That seems like a selfish thing. That's like, you don't love me unless like it doesn't have to express that to us, or do we just not have the methods for like?
If someone told me my neighbor loved me, but my neighbor never did a loving thing to me, I probably would not work under the assumption that they love me.
Or they have a shrine of you in the basement and they're avoiding you at all costs.
Like I don't see it as unfair to not categorize something as demonstrably a thing until it demonstrates, or someone demonstrates that it is that thing.
Yeah.
It's like saying, it's unfair to say that the rock doesn't have consciousness. But I think it would be even more unfair to say the rock does have consciousness when we don't have any evidence of the rock having consciousness, because then we could, if we, ad absurdum this, reductio ad absurdum this, then basically any proposition that we don't have evidence for, or evidence contrary to, it is unfair to make a assumption on, which I don't think it follows.
That's a fallacy. Just because we can't prove that would be a fallacy. Just because we can't prove something wrong doesn't mean it's right, and then vice versa. So
I use a more like dialectical kind of thinking, where like when you have objects and subjects, and you have like I said, like an object that is being subjected to a force. I guess we don't apply the same subjectivity to gravity itself. Like gravity doesn't choose to act in the way that it does. It just kind of does. So I guess maybe object and subject are you can't really apply those in a physical equation like this. Like the rock and gravity are just two just two objects, and the thing that is interchanged between them is like a I don't know, a weird expression, because you have something like that at the really small level with like virtual particles, right? Like isn't gravity might be a virtual particle, no?
Yeah,
like
it might be. We just haven't detected.
Gravitational waves.
Well, we just haven't detected the particulate representation for the standard model. But let's get rational eudaemonist in. They were asking in the chat here if they could get in. Go ahead, rational. And by the way, everyone can just speak up here. Just don't talk over each other.
Yeah, I just want to ask a simple question. So I understand you all are bringing in Dr. Hicks, which is a really great thing. I want to have some kind of way to ask him questions. I want to know if I can prepay to guarantee that I can ask him maybe 2 or 3 questions. So, he's an objectivist, and I'm also an objectivist.
Yeah. We had him on recently. Well, I guess it's probably a year ago now. We had him come into our Discord server and do a Q&A, which was a lot of fun. I'll look at doing that again with Stephen, because I am setting up some more events in the spring with Stephen already. So, we can do it. Well, just keep an eye on what we're doing here in the Discord server, and I'll try to get him back for another Q&A, because I think it's valuable.
I think you're saying that you're live with him and Dr. Cross on the 2nd of November, right? That's around the corner, right?
Yep. We'll be actually a bunch of us here on Discord are going to be in Colorado for the event. We'll be in Boulder, Colorado. It'll be Krause and Hicks for about 75 minutes, and then we will go to questions with the if you want to travel to Colorado, you can get in the Q&A line and have your question live.
Can I first of all, you look different, you look better with I don't know, I won't say you look better, but you look cooler with the new non-hippie hairstyle. Putting that aside.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people who agree with you on that.
Yeah. Can I prepay, can I pay you $100 so that you pass a message on to Dr. Hicks when you meet him or something like that?
You don't have to pay me $100, but what is your question?
Okay, so he is an objectivist and I am also an objectivist.
Yeah.
And I am preparing to release a book where I'm going to, the objectivist philosophy does not yet have a fleshed out ontology. It has a metaphysics, but I have done work to flesh out an ontology, which has a bunch of answers to questions in Mariology and has, I think, significant implications for objectivism moving forward. I want to talk to him. I want to send a message to him.
Have you tried emailing his academic email? Like if you just Google Stephen Hicks email, you'll find it. I would send him a direct email.
Yeah, that I intend to do that. I'm getting ready to release the book, but I'm also kind of trying to see if I can try to guarantee my message in a way. So there's an opportunity here for me to try to see if I can pass a message on with some kind of guarantee.
Well, what your proposition is here requires the work with it. So it's not something I can just ask him. What's the meaning of life? So I think it's maybe better for you. Here's what I'll do. Send me to travis@pang-burn.com everything you want to send to Stephen, and I'll send it to Stephen saying that you came into the live show today and you had something for him to glance at when he has time, and then he'll have it in front of him.
Travis at what?
Travis@pang-burn.com.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah,
thank you so much for your time.
I'll do that for you. No problem. Yeah, anyways, everyone who's listening, or everyone will be coming to this live stream after it's complete, we will be live on November 2nd, our next big live event. And, of course, a couple weeks after, we'll be dropping the 3-angle 4K shoot of the event, so you guys will get it. It'll be freely available here on YouTube.
Excellent.
Excellente.
Excellent.
An ontology for objectivism.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could expound on that.
Objectivism is the idea from Ayn Rand that the world is objective and that it doesn't matter how we think or feel about it.
Oh no, yeah, no. I was talking. I meant to like rational, eudaimist. I don't know.
Eudaimonist.
Eudaimonist. If you could expound on your ontology for objectivism.
It's coming out in the book. You can pay $7 for it. Sorry.
Yeah, this is someone who thinks he solved the equation. So we'll have to look forward to the book. First of all, we can analyze that claim. Is there not an ontology for objectivism? I guess
it's called physicalism.
Right. That's
Ayn Rand
is a physicalist, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just talking about materialism.
Ayn Rand is not a physicalist. She doesn't claim to be a materialist. She is a naturalist. She doesn't make any claims about what the ultimate sort of mereological substances of the universe are. She's okay with them being puffs of energy or whatever, or some kind of something. She's not saying that necessarily. She doesn't commit to saying the material.
Yeah, but
her philosophy moves in that direction.
What you just outlined was kind of the Bertrand Russell view, neutral monist view, but Bertrand Russell was still a physicalist.
Sure. I'm happy to say physicalist, sort of. I prefer to say materialist.
And I guess one thing I would also say is, well, physicalism is just a contemporary way of,
physicalism and materialism mean the same thing. It's just different time periods.
Correct.
And then the other thing, rational, just because Ayn Rand didn't claim to be a physicalist doesn't mean that she wouldn't fit into that category based on what we understand. But I'm sure
it's just a category.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's just a category, but Leonard Peikoff and Ayn Rand both resist the label materialism, and they don't call themselves naturalists either. And they are very resistant to being called materialists, and they definitely would object to being called physicalists. I think it's wrong for them to do that. I myself call myself a materialist, but they don't call themselves physicalists or materialists. So I understand that it's accurate to call them that, but they would resist that they would buck against that very hard.
So I don't know how you could, this is just my interpretation, but, it's based on the idea that reality is objective. Whatever you want to, if you want to use the word noumena, or if you want to use the word mind independent, that's what it's saying here that I'm reading. Yeah. It's based on the idea that reality is objective and that reason and empiricism is the only way to gain knowledge. So, I understand that, but that is a physicalist or materialist, whichever one you want to say, mindset. And just being a naturalist doesn't necessarily imply physicalism or materialism, but metaphysically, as a naturalist, you're accepting that there is an objective world that is separate from us in some ways.
I do not reject to calling myself a materialist. Other objectivists, including Rand and Peikoff, object to the label. Now, with respect to, you said that reality is objective. I just kind of want to talk about that because people keep saying that objectivity, as I understand, refers to the status of an idea as conforming to the properties of some external object. Objectivity refers to ideas and the method used to synthesize them, and reality itself is not objective as such. Like rocks aren't objective. The tree isn't objective. There are objects out in reality, and reality simply is what it is. It's external. It's material, so to speak, right? I don't know why people keep saying that, reality is objective. Ideas are or are not objective if they conform to the objects out in the world.
I don't know if I completely understand all of that. Objectivity, as far as I understand it, is the when you have a metaphysical cosmology of physicalism, then your objectiveness is the fact that it is measurable by us separate from our minds.
No. So if the object, the objectivity of an idea refers to its correspondence or its conformance to the object it claims to represent.
Yeah, that is right. Thomas is saying the same thing as you. He's just clarifying. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just pointed out, the reason I said what I said earlier was to point out that, a tree can't be objective. Ideas about the tree are either objective or not objective.
Yes. Yeah.
Is the tree an object? Yes. Is the tree an object?
Yes.
Yes.
So we can be objective about the tree, right?
That's what he said.
Yes.
You guys are saying the same
Yeah.
thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question, and let me know if there's any background noise. But I'm curious how like a thought could be objective. I guess if someone could explain that.
If you're asking from the objectivist perspective, read Ayn Rand's introduction to objectivist epistemology. She explains the theory of concept formation. In particular, it's basically a theory of modes, which is that objects in the external world have properties or attributes. Attributes are aspects of objects, and we can integrate these particulars into universals based on commensurable attributes among particulars. In other words, some particulars have attributes in common, which allow us to integrate them on the basis of the commonality of attributes, something along those lines. So it answers nominalism by saying, well, nominalists say that we can't find any fact-based criteria to integrate particulars into universals because there's nothing that is universally common to all objects, so to speak. And we just group objects together on the basis of convenience. That's nominalism. Ayn Rand answers that by saying that instead, what we do is we group them together on the basis of commensurable attributes, facts about them, which are commensurable among them, something like that.
Nominalism is the idea that universals are not mind-independent things, right? Or that they don't even exist in the way that we can understand them.
No, I don't think so. Nominalism, it's in the name. Nominalism, nom for name, is that we assign names to groups of particulars on the basis of convenience, and that universals are just a name that we assign to a group of particulars on no real basis.
Yeah, I understand that. But in metaphysics, nominalism is the view that universals and abstract objects do not exist other than being merely names or labels.
Oh, sure. Metaphysically, yes. I was talking epistemologically. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, thanks for the. Yeah, I didn't realize there was a distinction here. Thank you.
So if you're a nominalist, you would just say things like Plato's forms don't exist. Not
Sure.
in any way that would, be ontologically true.
Yeah. And you would say, when we call things chairs, or we say chairness or whatever, or let's say we try to distinguish between chairs and tables, we don't have any objective criteria, any fact-based criteria about the objects on which to draw that distinction. We just chose as a language game between ourselves to call these things chairs and call those other things their tables.
Yeah, that's what Wittgenstein would say. That's definitely what Wittgenstein would say in that language game. And you with the universal thing, nothing has the form of shit because I can use a chair as a baseball bat, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, the universe. I think I'm a nominalist pretty much for the most part.
Sure. I'm not here to fight. I'm just talking.
Oh no, I'm having a good time.
Like
Sorry if I seem contentious. I just want to make sure that we're communicating properly so that I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. You're great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It starts to sound like a pretty post.
No, thank you.
We're all getting Canadian, bro.
Eh?
Yay! Where'd Travis go? Is Travis still here? Of course not.
Rational, you eating?
Am I what? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, it's okay. I was just making a joke. He's indisposed at the moment.
It does
Scott,
sound
you
rational, like you're. Yeah, it does sound rational, like you're eating a bag of chips right now. Though, not gonna lie.
I'm eating Doritos.
Well, we're still live, so if anybody wants to bring up a topic, they're more than welcome to do so.
For that language
I have
game,
nothing in my mind.
for that language name kind of thing, or the numinalist kind of perspective, how do we different, like practically, like when we talk about science, we're talking about like the world as it exists outside. But the world as it exists to me personally, this is like a selfish point of view, but like my qualitative experience, these objects, like sort of filtered through like my subjective experience, or how I'm going to go through my life, like interacting with these objects that we've socially defined. How do we distinguish between the language game and objective reality, so to speak?
Well, what do you have?
Well, that's
How
what I'm saying. I don't think there's a
you-
functional difference between, we'd have to find the functional difference between how, these objects that I guess I could frame it like some people might not define any object for themselves and only rely on each thing as it is kind of culturally or socially defined. Like they don't really look for their own like objects,
Okay, why they should, when they have a definition of whatever they feel like comfortable with it, why they should still thrive further and try to find like a more perfect truth about things. Why they should do that thing. I don't know if you catch my drift here.
I think it varies between people based on
Absolutely.
A lot of people do find safety and find security in keeping things the same. And then there are people who routinely kind of debase themselves because they can't hold on to the meanings of the objects around them and constantly kind of redefine themselves and the world around them. So it's like a very human thing, but that's kind of what I'm talking about is the human
Absolutely
phenomenological universe.
Do you think that, I may have a subjective experience, but how much of it am I truly in control of? And what does that mean to an objective universe?
Yeah. And there's people, I don't know about sitting in a cave. I don't know what that does to you mentally, but there are people who can just choose to zombie out or whatever, take whatever kind of, illicit substances they want and kind of choose the reality that they live in, And at that point, what sense is there in an objective object?
Anyone want to weigh in?
Well, I think women are only a product of my imagination, so I need to stop subjectifying them so much.
Subjectifying, I like that.
Thank you.
It's a good word. I'm gonna use that now. Subjectifying. I'm down with making up words. What's my favorite one, Scott?
Kerfluffledugan.
Yes.
I also love Tilo Sus.
Jesus,
Yeah.
you should go to
What about some
Baltimore, man.
sauceology, Dum-Dum?
Sauceology.
That is a good one.
Dude, he's getting lost in the sauceology. When you do that with your hoodie, when you do that with your hoodie, you do have to say, "I am the Batman."
I'm thinking more Senator Palpatine of Pangburn. I actually have one right now, but mine's more like thief in the night.
Come to the dark side, young Skywalker.
That's too funny.
Yes, I can taste your anger.
Oh, Copio, dude, that's nice, bud.
What up, Copio? Copio's got a sick beard. Oh man.
Yeah, dude.
That's Petrie. He's been on camera.
Oh, geez.
Yes, man. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're in Finland, what time is it there right now? That's like a 12-hour difference. It's like 4 a.m, right?
Close. It's like 1:30 a.m.
Oh,
Sounded
that's not terrible.
It's quite
So
dark
far
here.
away. It must
Yeah.
be Tuesday. How well up to date on philosophy are the Finnish? Are they pretty up to date when it comes to like managing a lot of these large philosophical concepts? Or they just they don't give a shit?
I mean, there's some good universities in Finland, so I'm sure their philosophy departments are trying to stay just as relevant as the ones in U.S. or anywhere that's a developed nation.
Huh.
We don't just start philosophy; we finish it.
Right.
Yeah.
That is a tough question. Let me give you a quick half a minute answer. It's something like I guess we have had this kind of a saying here in Finland concerning about politics, and this has like an edge about politics, that everything that has to do anything about politics in the United States, it takes like 10 years to appear and really take like a ground stand here in Finland. And that really is the truth. Like whatever had happened like 10 years ago in the United States, that is the current state in Finland and obviously in the whole Europe.
Would you guys say that politics is? What would you guys' on American politics be?
You sort of cut out there, CJ, when you're asking that question. It didn't come all the way through.
Yeah.
My bad. I was reconnecting. Your opinion, Finland, be about American politics?
Oh, that is not an easy topic to to answer. Obviously, the stage has a huge impact on a global stage. I wish I had less to do with the national healthcare here in Finland, but we have just had a huge like reorganization of our national healthcare system, and it's devastating.
So when you say reorganization of the healthcare system, like
yes.
in what way was it a reorganization to go more towards a private system?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's been a disaster. Yep, that sounds familiar. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like 10 years ago in the United States, kind of a thing of conducting things in a political way. Yep.
Bro, the United States, healthcare-wise, is so fucked up, it's insane.
Yeah, somehow we found out a way to combine the problems of private healthcare and public healthcare into one gigantic issue.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. You may have insurance, but it's not going to cover much. And then the private sector's like, well, let's charge them thousands of dollars for insurance. But,
dude, if you ever go to the hospital and look at your bill, like they charge you like $5 for a pair of latex gloves. Fucking insanity, dude. Insanity.
These guys charge a lot. I often tell people, I was like, leave insurance out of it, man. Like, I'll just just offer me a subscription to the local hospital, and I'd rather just pay that. Leave everybody out of it.
Nah, see, like the problem is the middleman, right? So in the United States, you have like insurance companies, but you have like a group of people who make their money off of selling insurance, and their profit motive is to make the most right? So they're going to charge the hospital a lot. The hospitals at that point is going to be like, okay, well, we need to start charging more for these things so we can solve it.
But those are looked over. But health insurance companies are looked over by the IRS more so than probably most companies. In fact, a lot of what they're doing is what they call the dirty dozen list, which is certain group formations are going through heavy regulation through healthcare. So if you run an insurance company, you're being evaluated on the risks you're taking, not the price that you're putting things at. Your premiums are done through what we call actuarials, which means you can show data, real live statistics that show, hey, we are actually doing these things. When the hospital says this aspirin costs $500, right, that's a fucking problem, right? When insurance is actually involved in the healthcare system in a lot of ways that it shouldn't be, because it's in my mind, and I'm actually licensed in a risk, then it violates a lot of like very basic economic principles, right? And so there's that problem. And then you also have for-profit hospitals, very large groups that treat people like numbers, so on and so on and so on, where I just go, man, I'd rather just have a private practice healthcare guy down the road. I'll pay him a month, whatever he wants, right? And then when I got some shit and some problems, like a subscription model, I'll go fucking see what's up. Like there's 6 different ways to do this besides the models we're using now, for sure.
Yeah, the biggest issue with getting like a subscription to your local practitioner or something like that is what happens when you're I'm sure there's a way around that, but that's like the biggest problem that I would say.
You're cutting out, Bucky. You said what happens when, and then you cut out, so I think you're going to say what happens when some sort of specific affliction happens.
Yeah. Test.
You're good.
Okay. Yeah, my fucking car is being a pain in the ass. So yeah, my first surface question on the idea of paying your general practitioner for like a subscription there, kind of like basically super local insurance, is like, okay, what happens if you go to Texas or another state and you get injured there? What happens? I'm not saying it completely topples the idea, but it is like a first surface question of like, how do we safeguard that too?
Yeah.
And also that subscription. And
Yeah.
also that subscription to like a local provider wouldn't come anywhere near close to the cost like that you deal with when you get like, I don't know, some sort of stage 4 cancer, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just like
if you have to go to hospital, if you have to go to hospital, it's going to be way more than any doctor visit that they're going to be able to handle there. You know what I mean? I agree with that. Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
I think most healthcare costs go into admin because the system is so large. So there's a lot of money that is just laying around that really could be cleaned up. But nobody wants to go around and fire a bunch of people, and it's very hard when you cut admin and you're trying to replace it with other systems. It's a complicated mess. I'm not saying it's definitely easier said than done, but something it isn't. There is the.
I was going to say,
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
You had a question, Scott? Sorry, Grim. There's a delay or something going on.
I know there's a delay. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. Grim, please continue. Sorry. Like I thought you were done. And
yeah.
Yeah, let me the other side of it too is that there's coalitions and associations and other things that doctors and hospitals can work, which really haven't been done in the past, but now because we have the technology to connect these people and move funds a lot easier, I think there's a lot of ways that these coalitions can actually work while you're still kind of remaining small. I actually don't like really big hospitals. Their cancer division and their cancer wards are probably some of the best in the world. And those are great outsourcing methods for a lot of major problems that maybe your local doctor doesn't have to deal with. But, if we just keep people away from the ER alone, the cost savings are tremendous.
Do you agree that we need more?
Huge.
Do you agree that we need more? Grim, do you agree that we need more sophisticated, rural, smaller hospitals that aren't for profit?
I don't mind for profit as long as for profit is regulated, because once again, you got to be careful with with basic capitalistic principles when it comes to sickness and death. There's a lot of things that just don't fit, right? It's almost like we can be capitalistic about food, but we should also try to figure out a way to feed the poor.
Well, let's just back to the question. Let's say they are for profit or they're not for profit. Do you think that that's a good idea? More sophisticated hospitals in rural areas that have like MRI machines and shit like that? To where somebody doesn't have to drive 3 hours to, an actual serious hospital.
Yeah, so there's going to be a multiplication of a service based on supply and demand. And regulation, I think, when it comes to healthcare, there needs to be a way where if it's government or something local can really help out a local healthcare operation that is suffering from current economic conditions. Like let's say it's got a new MRI machine and it needs to make money back on the MRI machine, but the amount of actual people that are showing up, they're like 3 months booked out.
Yeah, it would be hard for a rural small hospital to maintain those costs. I get what you mean. Yeah, standard capitalistic models means that if the demand is high and the supply is low, the price must therefore go up. But in this situation, no, I think that actually violates economic principles because these people can't just be like, well, I was going to get an MRI machine, MRI done, but I guess I'll just go have McDonald's instead. Like, no, they need to go get fucking MRI. Like, they have no choice. It's based on death. And that's really
there's not an option to shop around is what you're getting at.
Exactly. It's almost like the big question right now is there's these people that come into FEMA zones, buy a shit ton of fucking goods, literally buy out the stores, like all the water, all the toilet paper, and then go sit on the side of the road and up the charge for 25 cents. Is it legal? Yes. Is it kind of fucked up? People are preying on people, but it's kind of that thing. But now you're a business.
I think this is a thing where Thomas might be going to, right? So one could look at regulations as being subsidies, right? So we're gonna supply subsidies to the medical industry, so we can have these facilities and these abilities to catch cancer in rural areas before it's like stage 3, stage 4. The amount of money that would save by being able to catch like maladies earlier in the process and then sort it out there versus trying to deal with it once you're in like the late stages is drastically different. right I mean, like once you're dealing with stage 4 cancer, the cost of it is through the fucking roof.
But and if you could have people are
go ahead, CJ.
I don't think people 1 second.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a big hospital that had a cancer ward and that's all it did, and all these other hospitals referred them to that cancer ward, I think you can actually get the price down because the problem with cancer wards, I don't know if a lot of people know this, I used to work in a massive hospital. They're not used. They're just not used that often. They sit there for a very long time. They're immaculate. They're kept to the highest level, and they sit there. And then when somebody comes through, right, they're doing the process, but they're just not used that often. And so there's ways to really kind of prevent people from getting cancer, which is probably the biggest conversation to have on the table, is working with local, that's healthcare people that are constantly working with you. I would never subsidize in any way because I know money comes with contingencies. And when money comes from a government, you can be sure if not today, then tomorrow, the contingencies are going to really ruin that area.
Yeah, but in the contingencies.
Just real quick, Scott. What would happen if we did have a bunch more hospitals in rural areas? Would that mean that the demand goes down, do you think?
I think that the demand for healthcare is going to increase, but I think that preventative care is what needs to be supplied. So as long as you supply those things, then the demand will regulate just fine, but the demand at the ER will drastically go down, which is the point.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, Grim, is like to subsidize preventative care, because in the United States, that's something we do not do. We deal with, we put off preventative care and then just say like, no, come here when shit's real bad, you know, and then the cost just fucking balloons, right? Yeah. Because of that behavior.
Hey, Petrie, hold on 1 second. Let CJ get in.
Yeah, it's very related. I mean, they might have said it while I was away, but when you're talking about like hospitals in rural areas, I think I count as a rural area and we have a hospital, but like when I went and got an MRI a while back, I was in a relatively rural area and there was no MRI, so I had to drive an hour or two out to get my MRI. But I don't think that we need like MRIs within 30 minutes of everyone. I think like Thomas was saying, having more preventative care, having more like making it so that people aren't scared to go to the doctor because they're going to have $100 fee for just showing up is a lot more important than saying, you have to drive half an hour to an MRI instead of 2 hours. Because once you need an MRI, nobody goes, I can just like shrug off this MRI. Most people are like, oh shit, well, I need to go get an MRI.
Correct.
The cost isn't going to go down if the MRI is closer to you. I really don't think it is, because now you're asking a rural that uses that MRI less, so they've got to pay off that MRI, and at the same time they're going to charge more.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you. I think it would, like, with these rural hospitals probably couldn't be as sophisticated as like UAB or something like that, you know, or Princeton or something like that, you know, some of the really big.
Well, there are so many aspects here, though, right? So the reason MRIs, like if you get an MRI in a country other than the United States, do you know how much cheaper it is? I mean, it's orders of magnitude cheaper, right? So in the United States, the reason why MRIs are so expensive is because of IP. And we're paying GE a certain amount of money for every MRI that's run, right? Other countries don't have to deal with that. Like you can go to Spain and get an MRI for like $50. In the United States, it's $3,000. Is that because of something special about the electricity in the United States?
Yeah,
no, it's not. No, it's not. It's about the system that we have set up. And this is guess what I'm talking about. And like to Grim, like this is where I was going of saying, you know, like $1 or like 5 cents prevention is worth of $1 of God, what's the old saying? $5 or 5 cents of prevention is worth $1 of reaction. Or remedy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like so if you just take care of something beforehand, it's a lot cheaper than if you just wait until it's a real bad issue. Then it's going to cost a fucking shitload more, and that's something we don't have in the United States. And you wouldn't need some fucking fancy hospital to have MRI machines spread across the entire United States. I mean, it's the actual materials, the cost of running it is nominal, you know, but the cost then goes into the fucking IP of it.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's a problem because other countries don't deal with that.
I mean, the main problem is that, you know, besides lack of hospitals and doctors and stuff, and broken system is that we what's the word? We don't guarantee healthcare. I mean, like think about like, you know, we guarantee the emergency room, but it's not, I mean, you know, you still have to pay, you still technically have to pay for it.
You're not saying we don't guarantee preventative care. So
we don't guarantee preventative care. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, because somebody might be diabetic and they can go and get preventative care to get insulin, and that's going to be far cheaper than if they wait and then have to go get fucking amputations.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, this is
well-
fucking basic. I think.
Let's let Petrie
well, I
get
mean,
in because he was going to say something a second ago, and then we'll go
Oh,
to
sorry.
Greg. No, it's okay. I cut him off, and I'm just trying to get everybody in here.
Who'd you cut off?
Petrie. Capitalism.
Yeah. The thing.
Excuse you.
I'm not sure. No, you're excused. No harm done or anything.
I just thought you might have something to add. I didn't know.
He was just trying to pronounce your name.
Sure. I think that there was so many points here that were made, and I'm not even sure if I have anything to follow up on. But I guess I want to say that there are many different, not too sure if I can even call them opinions, but somewhat objective, relatively objective truths here that we can discuss. But geez, there was so many things that are.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure how to describe it.
Well, your country. Just to get back to healthcare real quick, and then I'm gonna shut up and let Grim talk.
Yeah.
Your country guarantees preventative care, right?
Well, the thing is that it used to. This is the huge change in Finland. That it used to. Very short recap here is that we had a thing that our government used our tax monies on healthcare, and it was kind of like this national governing body of things in healthcare, and now they don't want to deal with it, and they just want to make these kind of like local areas that we have to govern ourselves, and we have to somehow make the money that the government made before and just be on our own and somehow make this same quality of things and the just keep on going as we were before this huge reorganization of Finnish healthcare. And that doesn't really work out at all.
I can tell.
I just posted a wiki article about the healthcare in Finland.
Okay.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, I was going to say is that if you apply capitalism really well in America, then you actually see what I think we're seeing now, which is healthcare costs go down. So if you want to bring up things like MRIs and you go to like outpatient clinics, it's going to be more expensive in Canada. In fact, Canada admits on their own websites that in a lot of cases they're more expensive than U.S. healthcare. U.S. healthcare, when it comes to certain areas, are just broken. It's just almost shattered because of the Kafka-esque issues that are in regulation and insurance and billing, and then you have a huge corporate machine that really shouldn't be in the mix in a lot of this stuff. So when I look at multiple locations with a bunch of MRIs, I see the price of MRIs going down, which has happened, and we've been able to show proof of that. When it comes to like the average outpatient MRI clinic cost out here is like $400. It's like $300 to $400, I think it is, as compared to going to Canada, where it could be about $1,000 that they bill to the government. And so they can spread their risk out differently, but we can also use capitalism and this free market to compete and keep prices down. When it comes to like regulating pills and regulating a company that says we just want to put $1,000 markup on this cancer pill, that's a huge issue. That's a big problem.
Okay,
when it comes to a brand new MRI machine that's coming out,
Scott,
and there's only one hospital.
Delay
Yeah,
again. I'm sorry, Grim. Scott, real quick, and then CJ, go.
Yeah, I'm just looking up. I just pulled this up. MRI cost Canada. The average cost in Canada for 2020 to 2023 fiscal year, the average cost of MRI was $762.
Not
right.
too
So
far
let's
off.
go to the cost in the United.
But you guys do understand that, like, I've had multiple MRIs. I didn't pay a penny.
Well,
Rumble,
somebody
did you
pays for
cut
it.
out, or-
Somebody pays for it. It's not that nobody pays for it.
Yeah, Scott probably cut out.
Well, the
CJ, you
government-
want to jump in after Travis?
Yeah, I've had plenty of MRIs too, and I also didn't pay a lot, but I did most of my MRIs TRICARE hospitals on military bases.
Can you guys hear me?
Right?
No, but I
Go
did
ahead,
my.
Rumble.
I'm telling you, my MRIs were done Vancouver General Hospital, and I didn't pay any money for it.
Oh, as a
Yeah.
Canadian.
We're not talking about you paying money, right? You can go, you can get insurance, and your insurance
yeah.
will pay for it, and technically you don't pay for it.
No,
Right?
I
You
don't
can
have. Listen,
But this is-
you guys got to listen. I don't have insurance.
I know.
I don't have
I know.
insurance. I get MRIs done.
I know.
They are free for me as a.
But that's
citizen.
equivalent of
Well,
saying
but-
me saying I went to the military. I now had the VA take care of me. I don't pay for anything. Like, okay, but somebody pays for it. There's still a cost involved.
So
I think what Thomas was saying is the actual cost
Hold
of
on.
MRI,
Hold
not
on.
the out-of-pocket pay, is higher in Canada than the U.S. Travis.
You
no,
might
no,
agree on
no.
what I'm saying.
That's not even the case.
It's not
like,
the case.
so, like I was trying to sorry, my headset died while I was talking through this. So I'm looking at the cost of MRI in the U.S. Neck. In the lowest category is $500. The highest category is $11,800. Chest, the lowest is $500. The highest is $7,900. Abdominal MRI. So like when you're looking at like, I don't know, your gallbladder, your liver, all that kind of stuff, the lowest is $1,600. Highest is $7,600.
What about
Right.
the one for balls?
The one for balls.
I'm sorry.
And so body area, organs and glands are the most expensive area to scan, costing an average of $907 in Canada,
Yeah.
versus the United States, where we're charging $7,600. I mean,
Yeah, but you just gave a
It's-
price range for the U.S. and then an average for Canada.
Yeah, so I'm looking at MRIs in major hospitals.
The price range in the United States is because you have different states and the way that it works. Canada is a unit. Like
in
a
a lot of
system
ways-
that's it's a united system, right? So like it's easier to say, okay, this is the cost in Canada. The United States, we unfortunately don't have that fucking luxury of saying this is what it costs, right? You
Well,
get that?
there's been studies done that I'm trying to talk about, and that's what I'm trying to say is that through some of the radiology businesses and some of the studies that they do, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the CMS, they publish a lot of this stuff, and they show, hey, look, like here's the outpatient cost for MRI. Now, if you have insurance, just like if you were on Canadian insurance or Canadian healthcare, then insurance pays for a lot of this stuff, and if it's through your work, then maybe you're not really even paying anything for this stuff, and so you're really paying for $7,000 APIs, but you're only paying, you only paid $20, so it's like there's a lot there where it's like depending on what's going on and depending on if you have certain types of conditions and certain types of issues, you're either going to be in a long waiting line in Canada, right? Or you're going to be charged out the ass here in America, and that's life. And then fortunately, or you can go a holistic route if you want. Like, so there's all these things where you can look at and say there's going to be costs and costs and costs. What I'm pointing to is that capitalism. What I'm trying to say is that when you put capitalism in the right areas when it comes to healthcare, it actually makes things really, really cheap. And we've been able to do this with a lot of goods and services. And we can do this with healthcare goods and services. But the problem is that the way it's being done is kind of corrupt, and it's causing a lot of errors and a lot of problems. Additionally, we should have some sort of social services that pick up some of these pieces, but that also costs us an immense amount of money. There is no state program today that is not federally funded.
Let CJ get in after you, Scott.
I do have a question for you, Travis. So if you're in Saskatchewan, Toronto, or Vancouver, are you going to pay the same amount for the same services?
Well, I've been trying to get this through to everyone. You don't pay for
Exactly. That's my point. Exactly.
Grimm's trying to make the argument, oh, you're paying through taxes. Yeah, well, that's fine, whatever. But out of pocket, out of your everyday, you don't get a hospital bill.
Yep.
There's no hospital bill. That has to go to the insurance company or anything. And as far as wait times are concerned, that's mostly just a myth.
Yeah.
Like, so people, I just hear people like, let's bring some data to the table here and cite some information and let's look at the actual like facts of
well, wait times. What happens, Trev, is people look at very rural areas in Canada and say like, oh, the wait times are very long. But if you look at rural areas in the United States where people are paying way more for the same service, the wait time is just as long because it's fucking an unsupplied area.
I can give you 4 sources. I can give you 4 sources right now that from Canada that show that yes, depending on certain services that you get, you're just going to be waiting longer in Canada than you will be in America, because America, money kind of makes things go a little bit faster, right? So if you have money, it's just how it works, right? As compared to a social service, like that's true for most social services you have, where it's like, well, the market, like a free market, is just going to be faster than social services because the free market's being increased by money. I know you have private healthcare too, right? Which is, I like the model. That's what I'm trying to advocate. And I'm saying, listen, I do like the state models that we have here. Was it Ohio, Hawaii, Florida, California? I don't know about Colorado if they have a state local healthcare, things like that. That's fine.
They do. Yeah, we do.
The cost to subsidize those on a federal level is about $1 trillion a year. It's just insane, because what we do and the way our models are right now is they're having a lot of negative impact, where basically you just have a bunch of people trying to go to the ER, you got a bunch of people trying to get pills, and you have a bunch of other people who are trying to, enforce and with regulation and with commercialization, trying to just make these massive, massive companies for insurance and for hospitals. And those are the people that rule and reign supreme and then determine the rules, right? And then all these other little private practice ones are like, we're just getting our asses beat. Like, how do we embrace small practice, and how do we get people to start working on preventive maintenance through telehealth and many other methods is the goal. Get people out of that.
Guys. CJ's been trying to get in for a long time, so.
Sorry, CJ.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. I've got a statement and 2 questions for Tom. So, okay, let's assume that, and this might be false, but let's assume that the actual cost, not the out-of-pocket, but the actual cost of it. God damn it. Why is that truck so loud? In Canada is 50% more than the US, and let's just say on average it's always 50% more. It doesn't matter how much an MRI costs in Canada. What matters is how much the average MRI cost is and how many MRIs we're doing per person because of the preventative human maintenance we have from the basic healthcare system that Canada has. So if Canada is doing less MRIs, it really doesn't even matter how much we're spending on the MRIs, but we could arguably get it down. But the comments I had for Tom, I think it's Tom, right? Sir Grimm?
Sir Grimm is different, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I've never seen your face before. So, Grimm, when we talk about, I guess everyone can answer this one. When we're talking about the private healthcare system, should we be able to just say, like, hey, you're allowed to make this much net profit per year, or you're allowed to make this much profit per item you use, and they're all supposed to do, like, proper accounting, so we should be able to hold them to 1%, 5%, 10%, 20% profit. And also, what do you mean by capitalism?
So that's what I mean is that
it's not America. There's no
insurance companies are held to that standard, and I would hold healthcare companies to that standard as well. So insurance companies, insurance companies can't make too much money. If they make a certain amount of money, right, based on their risk pools, right, then they're actually going to get dinged by the IRS. And I would do the same thing when it comes to pharmaceuticals, especially life-saving pharmaceuticals, not elective pharmaceuticals, but life-saving pharmaceuticals. Right, and then certain life-saving things that a hospital is doing, and that could be very vague. I mean, maybe just a routine checkup could almost be life-saving. But I would try to push that and say, listen, as a private hospitals and private like little healthcare system, like I would regulate them so they can't make too much money and exploit their people, because once again it's a very dangerous game exploiting people based on something that if they don't get this service they die. It's like that's exploiting people on water. It's like eventually your government will be involved when it comes to things like basic food.
I was going to ask
they are involved.
I do want to point out something though, Graham, because you talked about like the trillions of dollars, what it would be in taxes. Like if you look at the outliers of the American populace, what they pay for healthcare through their company, right? It is way more than what it fucking would be if we just had like one collective pool for the nation, right? So if you know anything about benefits and insurance, you're looking at specific pools, right? And the larger the pool is, the cheaper the services are based on the size of the pool. To me, that is like the reason why we should have a national healthcare system. Just make one fucking pool for everybody.
You talking about a single payer system?
Single payer, exactly.
The problem is with that is that when I speak about $1 trillion, I'm talking about $1 trillion is what our government has paid in deficit to what healthcare has not covered. So if you go to the ER and they take care of you and they try to bill you and you don't pay that bill, right, and your government picks it up through a healthcare system in your local state, which is typically the case, they just auto enroll you right into a state healthcare system if you can't pay the bill.
Not necessarily.
That deficit right there is $1 trillion to the taxpayer. Right. And so if John taxpayer says, listen, I want to be in a position to where it's my money and I want to make decisions with my money, including healthcare, what are my options? And I don't want the government doing it. Right. There needs to be that option there. And so that's why I like, hey, there's a private healthcare system. That's fine. You can have a government healthcare system that goes along with it, because I think that we need to be taking care of people that frankly are too dumb to do it. Maybe they don't have a lot of money. Yeah. But that system alone needs to be revamped in a way that really hasn't been done yet by any party. Sure. That looks more towards the private practice and subsidizes out in that direction that can help out poor people. And that's about the only method. Other than anyway,
real quick, please, just real quick. So I have to live on Medicare and Medicaid, which is through the state. There's no other way for me. I wish that model worked for everyone. Like we could give everyone Medicare for their actual like hospital bills, and then that's federal, and then give Medicaid, which is state, which is paid through the taxes to the state, sales tax, and all that kind of stuff. I think that would be good. So let me ask an overall quick question, Scott. What do you think would be the best way to get let's just pick MRIs because that's what we've been talking about. Yeah. What would be the best way to lower the cost of MRIs across the nation?
For the United States, it'd be revoking the IP status of MRIs, right? So then for an MRI, you're only paying for the cost of the electricity and the person running it, the person running it, like in like their paycheck, right? As opposed to like paying a shitload of money for the intellectual property for GE to fucking sit there and rake in a fuckload of money. Yeah.
So are you saying that GE gets a royalty every time someone uses one of those things?
Correct.
Is it because of the software, or is it because of the actual hardware?
It's because the intellectual property, right? So
Scott, do we know this happens every time? Like literally every time somebody
literally every time, yes.
Damn.
Yeah, let me pull this up. MRI IP cost.
I'm not saying you're lying or anything. That's just hard to believe that they're getting a royalty every time. How would they keep up
every time? Because they can do in the United States. You have this ability to change your patent. It's what they do with like insulin. It's insulin, right? So like insulin, they just change like the delivery device every 5 years, and through that they say, okay, it's a new patent. and then they can charge more for it.
Why don't they just get an MRI? Why don't they just get an MRI machine from somewhere else?
They can, but the person who
Siemens,
was talking before,
Philips, Canon, Hitachi, and Bruker. There's 5 companies that compete with the MRI field that does that. Doesn't look like GE gets royalties per se, but they do get commissions, obviously, from their software and from selling MRI.
Might be the software that they're updating. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's going to be commission based. Mostly MRIs because the cost of the actual people doing the MRIs, right?
Read that off and let CJ go.
Radiologist.
In the United States, healthcare pricing isn't often straightforward. To fix this issue, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services introduced a new hospital price transparency rule that went into effect January 1st, 2021. The rule requires hospitals to publish their pricing.
And we call that the hospital's black book because they literally have a file that only execs are allowed to be in and certain accountants that for the pricing, and they'll change the algorithm. And there's huge algorithms, but they'll change the algorithm. So if they change aspirin to just be 30 cents more, then they can see how that's going to affect what we call EBITDA, right? Their earnings.
I think CJ has a question, guys. Can we interrupt real quick?
Yes.
Okay.
The only question I had, and this might be backwards, is Grim, what do you mean by when we apply capitalism to healthcare, it goes down or something like that? Like,
so if I have a major hospital in your area, right? This fucker's like 8 stories tall. It's got 100 doctors in it, and I imploded that thing in a way of market share. I didn't actually blow it up, but I imploded it as far as market share. So now it only instead of it taking 50% of the people. Instead of it taking 50% of the people around it as clients, now we have 4 to 5 smaller practices, right, that take on 50% or more, right, of clients, which means there's less people going to the ER and less people being treated like a number at a larger hospital or at a corporate hospital. And as well as there's also 4 to 5 or 6 more MRI locations around. So those people have to compete and say, yeah, we do MRIs for $500. And then the person down the road gets to say, well, we can do MRIs for $400. And so it allows capitalism, it allows the capitalistic mindset so that you have competition. If you have one huge hospital, right, in a major city, and you can't go anywhere else, and you only have 1 or 2 insurance companies, and you can't go anywhere else, and you only have GE that supplies MRIs, and you can't use anything else, that's not good capitalism. That's violating a lot of antitrust bullshit because you have no options in the market. You have to do that. You have to pay that premium, or you have to have your government pay that premium, and that's a pain in the ass.
Like, okay, let's say that we're in a city that has one big hospital and no other practices around it. What is stopping those practices from just popping up if it's financially viable?
I would say that there's a lot of issues when it comes to private practice trying to approach and trying to prey on the current market share of large hospitals. So when you have private practice, a lot of times...
Wasn't that your argument as a good thing of private practices popping up to take off some of that share that's going to the hospital?
Yeah, so you would promote local governance, right? Or maybe even larger governance, right? In a way that really promotes local, like smaller hospitals and smaller care facilities, where it's kind of been the opposite, right? We've been seeing a lot of local and small facilities going away, not just because of, it's not market forces that drive that away. If anything, people don't want to get treated like a number at the hospital, but market forces are very manipulating when it comes to also regulation. And so if you're having a little private practice healthcare place and you want to do MRIs and they want to treat you like they do the big hospital and regulate you as hard, well, then they kind of keep you out from doing that. So, but if you have an older system and more what we do, like more closely regulated, like a county gets to be able to go in there and say, yes, you meet our MRI standards in the county, then you can start to see some of that. So as long as you just have like municipalities really push locally.
Are you saying that like there's some sort of laws and red tape prohibiting private practices from having MRI?
No, I'm just saying the barriers to do so and the financial capabilities are very large. Yeah, they're very strict. MRIs are very dangerous. And what you do is you have these large massive groups that are writing the regulation, and they know when they write the regulation that if you're buying, let's say an old MRI machine that really doesn't do these new things, or you have a different type of style or setup when it comes to MRIs that don't really apply 100% of the regulations, you're just going to be told you can't build it. As compared to having a local municipality that may have local MRI regulations that might have a different standard, or they're just doing what we call KYC, which is just a more intricate understanding of what this private practice is doing. And then they can sign off and say, yes, what they're doing is absolutely safe. It just doesn't look like a big hospital. And that's the point.
Yeah, when I
finish your real quick, and then Scott goes.
Okay, I'm confused. When I asked, are there specific policies that are preventing smaller practices from getting like MRI machines? You said no, and then you started giving a whole bunch of examples of policies that seem to, in your opinion, at least locally or on a larger level, prevent them from getting MRI machines.
I'd have to go find the specific regulations depending on where you're at, like how government promotes large healthcare systems rather than small healthcare systems. I can find a lot, yeah. But it has to do with zoning. It has to do with if you have a major hospital moving to your area, a lot of times local ordinance, like municipalities, when it comes to the board, or maybe even a mayor, or maybe even a governor might be involved, and they'll actually change the zoning, or they'll create tax-free incentives for that hospital to come in. And they think it benefits society, which it does, but a lot of people don't think about what that does to a lot of small mom and pop places. Right. Or maybe 4 or 5 doctors have a practice and they're just getting their ass kicked because this big hospital just decided to move in and just do a massive marketing campaign and sweep everybody.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I just want to actually go to the fact of infrastructure too with MRIs, right? So MRIs, you cannot do a standard 120 or a 220 voltage outlet, right? So you have to actually have a 440 outlet, which is pretty fucking specialized in the United States when you're dealing with electricity and how that's delivered. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
But the MRI machines and MRIs like that have been
questionable.
Have been around for decades and decades. So
they are. No. What I'm saying, Graham, is I'm sort of giving your position a little bit of fucking headway with saying maybe the reason why rural areas don't have more machines is because of the infrastructure is not there to support those machines, right? And to get that infrastructure, you'd actually have to have an electrician come out and run specific fucking systems to your facility, right?
Yes.
When a hospital does this, they're just doing it right off the bat. So they have these high fucking level outputs for certain machines they use, right?
So 440 is not a big deal. 440 is a change that you need to have, but you can a lot of people have radiology centers inside of manufactured facilities, right?
It is
like mobile facilities. There's a lot of stuff. So the technology around powering MRIs and a remodeling of a room, or having literally they build these manufactured homes that they'll literally drop off with a semi. They don't have wheels on them. So they'll just drop off, and that thing does MRIs. That's what it does. And you can have somebody come by and pick it up and drive it away. But once again, the technology on the electricity and the electrician that needs to know what he's doing, it's been around for so long. Most people know how to make 440. When you get above 600, that's when you start to run in with restrictions, usually with local power. 440 can be managed. I think that it can be managed. You're not really talking. It takes electricity, sure, but once again, it's pretty common knowledge.
Dude, literally, I was just trying to give your fucking argument a little bit of backing But the reason why these machines aren't in rural areas because the cost is more to run power to these things. Sorry, dude. I was trying to give you a little bit of
I understand that it takes money. I understand that it takes money and effort to where a hospital is already going to have, more obviously than 440 or even 600. A major hospital have that ability to run them, but 440 is not an astronomical amount. That's what I'm saying. Is that when you get to 600 plus,
no, it just costs money though. That's all I'm saying. Yes. I'm not saying it just costs money. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, but that's not everything costs money. And even though it's one of those things that's it's not new for an electrician, right, to figure out how to do an MRI room, and that's where the expense can get really high. But when we're almost 50 years into the practice of building MRI machines like rooms, then the cost of adding 440 for an MRI thing probably isn't that much. But yes, it's going to be more on a private practice. Maybe, but I would say the expense is larger to the hospital, and when it comes to actual costs.
Yeah, so then we just go right back into price gouging. Like I was trying to give you some like leeway here, but like, yes, of course, like the cost of this thing is going to raise up this much. So the capitalistic response is going to like, we need to charge 30% more than our cost. This whole line, like, but now if you want to say like, there's no cost there, then why is it so much more expensive in the United States?
Cheaper. That's why you're not listening, right? Is that I'm saying, listen, that procedure to put like if I had 5 private practice healthcare operations pop up in my town, and the cost to get an MRI machine and a room built, right, is something like $25,000, right? And I go, okay, well, if you're gonna build that, right, if you're gonna build that and you're gonna remodel this room, right, for 10 grand and buy a used MRI machine for 15 grand, because I think new ones go for about 20, depending on the MRI machine, obviously. But just basic MRIs, just real standard stuff. And this one's going to cost you 15 grand more. You're going to bake that into the cost over time. But if your neighbor does it, right, then you're going to make sure that you're not price gouging the clientele. Otherwise, nobody's walking through your door. But if you also make it so that local regulation is supporting building these things and continually building these things, or maybe you have a company along that says, hey, we'll drop one on, we already have one built. We already have a whole totally room built. You rent it from us. We'll drop it behind your facility. It's out in the parking lot. You can go in there and do MRIs all diggity damn day, and you pay us, a monthly rent. Like, there's a lot of ways to bake these in. But if you have 5 to 6 of them around rather than just one hospital, then you start to see prices go down based on just basic, macroeconomic principles.
Wait, okay. I guess I have 2 questions. But first off, where are you getting those prices? Second, we've got 2 things, right? We've got the red tape restriction and we have the money restriction. Let's say this guy just opened up a private practice. There's 10 private practices. How many of these practices as a percentage do you think would exceed the red tape restrictions so that they would pass legally? And how many of them as a percentage do you think would have the money to actually get an MRI machine? And which one do you think is a more limiting factor? But also, where are you getting $15,000 for an MRI?
Very good questions.
It's a hypothetical, so it could be 30,000, it could be 100,000, it could be half, it could be none. But what I'm trying to say is where the question you're trying to pose is like, how can if these things cost so much money and the rooms cost so much money, right? How can it bring costs down? Is that kind of what you're asking?
No. What I'm asking you is, what do you think is more restrictive? People's access to the money to access these systems, or people's ability to jump over the red tape, or inability to jump over the red tape? Because it seems like you're asking, or you're saying, if we apply capitalism, aka remove restrictions, more people will be able to make MRI machines. But I think most people don't get MRI machines because they don't have the money.
It's not necessarily that. It's the fact that what's the point of investing when a large hospital is taking most of your clientele, right? What's the point of trying to do that business venture to help out your community right? If you're being put in a position where it's not financially feasible, or the regulation is not financially feasible, and if you're being treated like a big hospital rather than rather than having a good inspector come by that says, well, actually, you don't need to be treated like a big hospital, right? This is fine for the MRI thing that you're trying to do. Just don't try to do what maybe this big hospital is trying to do in these areas, right? I would go to private practice for a full cancer operation. I'd probably go to a major hospital and try to find a major hospital that literally a ward is dedicated to cancer, because that's a very extreme situation. But when it comes to like, hey, I broke my leg and I need an MRI, I don't want to go to a facility that is charging me, a lot of money, because not only do they do that, they do a bunch of other different types of MRIs, and that all needs to be baked into the price. So that's really what it's about, is saying, hey, if you only have one option, well, then no shit the price is going to go high. Well, no shit that regulation is going to get fucking wonky and it's going to get wacky. It's because you've got too much control in those areas. And so for me, if I had to look at the most problematic when it comes to why private practice just doesn't have MRIs around, is going to be depending on their area. If regulation is not encouraging private practice, well, then no shit. It's not even a good venture for them. And if the money is not there to do MRIs, well, then they don't have a good corporate solution to come along and sell them something that's going to make them money over time, because it's an investment.
So what regulations are increasing these prices specifically so that a private practice can't afford to undercut the big hospital by 2%, 10%, 5%?
It really depends. There's a lot of things that are involved. So when you've got safety standards like HIPAA laws that can be, looked at like for hospitals rather than smaller practices. Smaller practices have to deal with a lot of regulation when it comes to large HIPAA laws. But you also got to think about.
But they deal with that in everything, not just MRIs. Right?
When you have a small town that is saying, we have, 2 to 3 small practice doctor, places, maybe there are 2 or 3 doctors, these little groups, and they're taking care of us. When the town votes for a large hospital to come move in and take over, a lot of that comes with incentives, which is like zoning regulation to favor a large hospital, tax incentives, so a hospital doesn't have to pay taxes for a certain amount of time, right? And marketing opportunities when it comes to how they can market and where they can market, because marketing healthcare services is kind of regulated a little bit different. And if you do so in a way that allows them to kill the small mom and pop operations, right, where they're barely functioning, and now mom and pop operations can't even expand in the right way, they can only stay in their lane when it comes to certain things. That's the problem, is you're killing market forces. And there's no market force now to challenge that big hospital. So certain regulation can be in that. And if you want the exact regulation, it would have to, depending on the location, I can go, cool, like you can definitely see this regulation here, that regulation there, and that's why that small mom and pop can't buy an MRI machine tomorrow for, half the cost of what this other state can do.
So you're saying that the regulation that's existing might not necessarily be increasing directly the cost of a private practice, but what it might be doing is giving the large one that already has economy of scale even more incentives, and indirectly is helping them make MRIs, CAT scans, all these other things that they might cost the same, but they already have economy of scale, and 2, they're paying less in taxes, they're paying less in all these other smaller areas, which gives them, in the end, a decent advantage.
It does, and maybe their laws in that big hospital are changing local regulations when it comes to, medical health and safety, and then these small mom and pops can't keep up with that, because here you have big corporate in there, which might have, better standards of practices. Which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing for small practice.
I mostly follow you, but once you get to this idea that like a hospital is showing up in my town of 20,000, 30,000 people, which that just did happen like 2 years ago, a big hospital came in, is going to like somehow change. It's going to start influencing all of the healthcare laws for the entire county or for the local city that it's next to. I don't see that. I haven't seen that at all recently, and I'm not sure how I'm not sure why people would just start voting in favor of this big hospital.
It's not people voting. It's the people that are in power at the hospital are getting involved on a local level, and they'll start changing some things, right? So it's, if you have, let's say you have a city council member, and they say, well, I have Steve here who runs the major hospital here in our county. It's the largest hospital. So he's actually the expert when it comes to how these mom and pops should be acting, right? So like you have a lot of people who lean on that kind of stuff or want to point to, you know, larger operations as the example, as the status. Or it could be something where it's, you know, because Steve has, you know, a huge hospital, he's able to have certain favors and certain other things go his way when it comes to ordinance and regulation that maybe mom and pops don't, because they don't have that kind of sway. And if you make Steve do it, it's going to disrupt the community, you know? So obviously he shouldn't do it, but these mom and pops, they need to do it, you know, because it's not going to cause too many issues. Well, that's only because Steve took over most of the market. And when you control most of the market,
it sounds like you kind
of have a lot of power.
Yeah, but it sounds like what you're saying is you're just criticizing the way local governance works in certain areas, as opposed to the way that private practices and larger hospitals like exist in a vacuum without government oversight. Like, obviously, yes, if there's a government official that is prioritizing the wellness of one business over another, that's one thing. But I don't think that's something that's like specific to any particular business.
It's not specific to healthcare. Big farming is big ag is also another big issue too. You'll have a huge town or a city, municipality that will basically offer a major ag company to come in and service its food and restaurants. And what they'll do is they'll just start killing mom and pop at that point. And it's and they offer incentives, and they'll, you know, in a lot of ways they'll pay them. It's kind of crazy, where they'll literally have a slush fund of money, and they're like incentivizing large ag companies to come over. So yeah, it is same way with Walmart moving to your town. Like, yeah, you're just not going to have a lot of mom and pop left over. When it comes to healthcare, like, I don't mind that on a capitalistic principle, because you're going to have a local community kind of fight that, and you're going to have to figure that out. And, you know, there's market forces. When it comes to healthcare and things are necessary, otherwise they're dead, I think things need to be regulated a little bit differently than these other industries.
Who decides on your behalf what is good for you? Is kind of a question that I tried to ask before in this whole conversation.
We decide what's good for us, and then when it comes to regulation,
Grim. I was going to say that's more of a philosophical question. We can change the topic here in a moment, but I do want Grim and CJ to finish their conversation.
Yeah. Please do.
Yeah.
I guess, Grim, the only thing I was saying is, like, probably we could get more into capitalism if you guys are interested in that, unless you have a different Thomas. But yeah, I was just kind of, because one thing Grim was saying was,
if you want to.
Yeah, and I don't have to talk forever. But,
no, you're fine. Go ahead.
One thing that I heard you say, Grim, that I thought was interesting is, like, if we apply capitalism, things will happen this way. And I think I agree a lot with what you're saying about localities and how they interact with economic forces and stuff like that. But when you just say, oh, if we apply capitalism, like, from a communist perspective, I'm not a communist personally, but from a lot of communist perspectives that I know, when you say capitalism, they're referring to the people that are giving these big hospitals incentives to do these things because it's going to, quote unquote, benefit the community. Whereas it seems like you're coming at it from let's deregulate specific parts of, specific rules, or maybe not deregulate things, but hold everyone to the same account. And when you say capitalism, that's not what I think. And I'm not sure if that's what anyone else thinks. I just thought that it was a really interesting subject, but that's all.
Well, when I say capitalism, I'm talking about certain mathematical principles that are derived in microeconomics. And when you add some of the things that we're doing, like how, if you look at actuarial insurance risks and it comes to healthcare costs and insuring healthcare, to me, it violates principles. And this is my profession, so I can see kind of what happens on the back end, and I can kind of see the math, and I look at it and I go, does nobody understand that this kind of violates economic principles? I got a friend of mine, she visits MIT a lot, and she's actually on a healthcare binge right now. She's trying to change healthcare in America, and so she visits with the professors at MIT, and they all kind of laugh, saying the same thing. It's just like, yeah, man, and where's the economic principle of jacking up a pill 1,000% to then have healthcare try to pay for it, and only to increase profit to a company? Right? But that person can't go outside the market because of what Scott said, due to the IP laws. They can't go outside the market to go find that pill, and if they even attempted to, they'll be dead by then. You know what I'm saying? That's the equivalent of me holding all of the food on the island and saying, well, I own all the food on the island. Where's the capitalist?
Grim, it sounds like you're talking about like monopolization.
It is monopolization, and it's corruption. And so I look at that and I go, this is something that really doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't mean that capitalism shouldn't be there. Capitalism should be there when it comes to the companies that are making things and are part of it and are marketing it. And you need to have more market options. But more market options will decrease the pricing, right? And good regulation, not more regulation or less regulation, better regulation or smarter regulation, including Regu-Tech, which a lot of people don't understand, but it's automated regulation, will literally solve a lot of this stuff. And some people have. Like, it's not like I'm speaking on my ass. I'm like, oh, one day I hope we live in this land. It's like, no, there's actually a lot of places that are doing this. It's just it has to be done on a very small scale, like county-wise, rather than state-wise and national.
Well, it's just real slow because the fucking bullshit Martin Shkreli pulled. Like, how in the fucking world was that even possible? Like, and if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, this is a guy who took a drug and like marked it up by like 3,000%.
That is exactly what I was talking about when I said that statement.
Yeah. Dude, he's a fucking scumbag to the highest degree. But there was nothing there. That's not even what he got in trouble for. He went to prison for other shit. But
no, but he did go to a Senate hearing over that.
He did go to a Senate hearing.
I think he was doing insider trading or something. What he got caught for.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But so Graham, I guess my question would be like,
United, which sucks.
Yeah.
Go ahead, CJ.
My question would be like, okay, what if you could like, if it's possible, could you simply explain what applying capitalism would mean in a particular scenario?
I thought I was pretty specific, but it was about, supporting, having local regulation, support a system that endorses more private healthcare facilities, smaller private healthcare facilities to pop up and start eating away at the large market that maybe a major hospital has in your area. And it's working with regulators to say major hospitals can do major shit, but when it comes to a lot of the practices that our mom and pops are doing in the area, we don't want them doing that, or we want them competing on that on a fair and even level, so that people can know, hey, you don't always have to go to a major hospital for that practice or for that operation. There's a lot of local stuff around you that is willing to also accept, whether it be local, publicly funded healthcare, or it's insurance based or subscription based. So
kind of like encouraging policies that promote healthy, healthy competition.
Healthy competition from healthy people that are promoting healthy lifestyles, because the hospital is going to treat you like a number, and your fat ass needs to go get exercise, and they're not fucking telling you that. They're just telling you to get fucking blood work done, and something's wrong with your back and your thyroid, and you need to come in next week because more money and yada, 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 rather than going to a local private practice that you that's a little bit easier, and they probably know you, maybe they even know your family, and they're actually able to kind of do some more, like, be like, oh yeah, man, like work with you on stuff. So, and also telehealth too, making sure that you're having a doctor that is working with you on telehealth and constantly sending you messages.
Yeah, I do want to say just real quick.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to help. Rational. 1 second. Go ahead, Scott, and then we'll get in rational.
Yeah. I just need to make a message for the channel. Like, we're live right now, so let's hold off on the fuck bombs so much. Just a few less F bombs, if you will.
Yes. So rational. Go ahead.
Hey, is Travis here right now?
He is not. He is indisposed at the moment.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to.
All right.
I just wanted to verify whether he's got my email.
Sure. I will pass that on to him later. I'll ask if he did.
Yeah, I believe Travis is listening, but he's just not like talking right now.
He's taking care of personal business.
Yeah, and he will get your email. Like, don't worry.
Yeah,
about
he'll get it. Go ahead, CJ.
Oh, I was just saying, sorry if I said the bad word.
No, we all
good.
drop F-bombs. We're all guilty of it, but it is nice because we do want to be all inclusive here to not cuss as much. But I think it's funny every now and then. I mean, throw an F-bomb, just not every word, every other word.
But also, who knows with YouTube, like how many F-bombs gets you demonetized? Like, right? So, like,
well, this is an adult channel. This is an 18+ channel, so I don't think that they can get onto us. But we don't want to offend anybody by cussing. Like if there's Christians watching this show and they have sensibilities about cursing and saying the GD and stuff like that, I don't want to offend them. I want them to be able to feel welcome here. So
I don't hold such aspirations, but I'll be nice.
No, it's okay. Yeah. I mean, you can say cuss words if you want to. It's completely up to you. I just don't want to. I don't want to run anybody off, I guess.
Yeah.
Rumble, did you have a topic or?
Ooh, a topic. So after the healthcare topic, what's another topic?
Petrie had brought up a philosophical question about the topic earlier that we were talking about. So
there we go.
I'm offended. I'm offended by a channel that is trying not to offend people.
Dude, your face offends me, Grim.
Aw, thank you.
I fucking love you, buddy.
No, I mean, no topic is off limits here. I just we want to have some decorum.
Yeah, what was so Pete? What was where was Petrie going?
Well, I wasn't really going anywhere. To be very precise here,
okay.
I was just I don't want to get into a philosophical way of things here, but I was just trying to pushing the boundaries and pushing the limits of what people are actually describing about their positions here. I
think
getting
one thing you brought up,
I think. Huh?
Yeah, I think what you were getting at is like, okay, there's these certain prescriptions in U.S. healthcare system, but like, who's making these prescriptions? Who's saying that this is life-threatening?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, feel free to expound on that.
Well, I mean, the better question is, how come in every other country that has pharmaceuticals, the government is involved when it comes to pricing, but we're not?
Okay. Sure.
George Bush.
Because America is better.
Oh, go ahead, Peter. I'm sorry.
No. We're all good. We're all good.
Yeah, seems interesting.
I don't know if it's relative or interesting or I don't know. Yeah, it just feels so weird to live in a country that had this kind of like governmental, governmental supportive system for healthcare. And when it's like ruined, so to speak, that's my personal opinion here, obviously. But we are definitely heading towards this kind of like privatized healthcare in very, very large scale. When we are talking about like a 5 million people, like a country.
Yeah.
The
United States has like 350 million, so it's hard to compare Finland to us. But I get all you said. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, was going to say, like, I feel like we've circled the square of this conversation. I've got a conversation point. So here's what I'll state. I believe I'm a Gnostic atheist, the same way that I'm a Gnostic anti Santa Clausist, right? So like to me, to take the position that, like, well, maybe God could be real is as completely ridiculous as taking the position that maybe Santa Claus could be real.
I guess I've got off. Unless you want to keep going.
No, that's it. That's the start of the conversation right there.
So I think the difference between being an agnostic like a Gnostic something is like, when you're speaking of Santa Claus, you're speaking of a very specific person with very specific attributes, maybe not person, but entity at least, with very specific attributes, and like, okay, he has a reindeer with a glowing nose and he flies across the sky. I can agree with you that.
Same for Yahweh,
but God has very specific aspects as well, right? So, like, this is something like, yes.
Gods have very specific aspects.
Yes.
But the entire concept of God is a very, like, an atheist isn't rejecting one God. An atheist is saying, I don't believe in any gods. Now,
it's not saying I don't believe. It's just saying I don't have proof to believe, right? So if you were never told of, like, the God that lives in my right shoe, would you believe it? Right? So would I say you're rejecting the idea of a God in my right shoe because you've never heard of it, right? No, that's not what an atheist is.
Real quick, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt so much. So wait a minute, Scott, what did you just say?
So an atheist is just you're taking the position that, like, you don't believe, you have no evidence to believe something.
So here it is. This is what I read when I taught this online. Theism and atheism have to do with belief. Gnosticism and agnosticism have to do with knowledge. You can be theologically an agnostic atheist, which is basically, I don't know, but I don't think so, right? Mm-hmm. But then if you're just talking about theism and atheism, theism is, I do believe there is a God or some God, and then atheism is, I do not believe that there is a God or some God. It may not necessarily mean that you're positing that there are no gods.
Exactly.
But there is a little bit of CJ. There's a little bit of playroom. I'm not necessarily correct.
I think there was a misinterpretation of what I was saying, because I did misspeak. I did say atheism is a rejection of belief, which isn't necessarily true. And I apologize for that imprecision. But, like, when I say I'm an agnostic atheist, I mean, like, I do not believe in any god or gods because of lack of evidence, more specifically, and that's the agnostic part. But the atheist part is just saying, like, the reason I'm not going to make a Gnostic claim is because if I make a Gnostic claim of atheism, I'm saying that no god or gods. Yeah. Well, I have a burden of proof, and I'm saying that I've positively rejected the God in your left shoe. Right. I haven't done that. I haven't even considered.
Here's the problem that I find, though. Like, would you say the same thing about leprechauns? About Bigfoot, about fucking.
That's cryptozoology. So what about something where, if I said something like, none of that really, like, some of the stuff that comes out of cryptozoology is batshit crazy. There's a guy that comes into my house and he plants presents and maybe kisses my wife. Like, what's happening, right? But the difference is that when you go to your neighbor and you start to investigate, they're like, no, that's ridiculous. And you go to your next neighbor. Okay, that's not what's ridiculous. What about leprechauns? What about it? And you go and you go and you go and you go. But everybody's pointing to something. It's almost like aliens and ghosts to me, more than it is Santa Claus. We're going, there's something happening here. There's this weird phenomenon. Is it psychological? Is it a human control trick? Is it a phenomenon that we don't understand? My knowledge ends at death, and there's supposed to be something that happens after death. Like, what is, like, that's a weird thing. So for me, it's almost like it's not Santa Claus, it's an alien ghost.
To me, it seems to be things that are like more hard to disprove, right? So it's really easy to disprove Santa Claus, fucking the Easter Bunny, all this kind of stuff. Like if it's just something that we know is not actually real, right? But the Jesus myth and everything is the same thing as Santa Claus. It is just a story human beings tell ourselves, but it's wrapped up in a way where it's really hard to say, oh, I can't prove it's not true. Oh, damn, everybody left.
Awesome. I could see that being part of like I said, there's mysticism around these things, like Noah and the flood, and God being a wrathful God and doing this. That's fine. That's fine. Mysticism. That's the Santa Claus-esque of it. What I'm more interested is the phenomenon. I'm more interested is why of all the religions people are pointing to a thing, right? And why these things are doing these things, and are ghosts, aliens, and gods all one thing?
Well, I would say we can probably exclude aliens from that, Grim, because that's not necessarily supernatural, is it?
Well, it's not. But that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is Scott is practicing one logic system that I still work with. That I'm going to say, okay, I'm agnostic. I'm atheist to the idea. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm also saying but I'm also not naive that people are pointing to things, and there's something going on. And I'm not going to wait for the evidence to come out so we can scientifically know how it works, or what's happening here. I'm going to keep on looking and try to get a more clear picture of what that thing is through believers and through, kind of all these practices, and keep studying where it's like, dude, there's something there. I don't think it's wishy-washy at all to say there's, I know for a fact there's nothing there because I have no proof there's nothing there because my logic told me to do so. I'm going, fuck, dude, if everybody's pointing to the fucking thing, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go try to figure it out.
Yeah, so what you're referring to is the salience in consciousness, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? This idea of the salience and consciousness, where it's
I've never heard of that.
You know what salient means? Like, it's a thing that like drives your attention. Yeah. The salience in consciousness. It's like it's something that like because we have this conscious mind, we see these things and we make ideas out of it, but it doesn't make it true, right? I mean, I guess that's my biggest point is like we just don't know what's true unless we have some sort of methodological fucking way to determine system to determine what is actually true and what's not, right? So we can look and say we understand the way the spectrum of light moves, so any photons oscillating at this frequency are going to look blue. Correct.
That's great logical scientific understanding. When it comes to practicing, trying to get a clearer picture of what people are trying to point to, right? I think I just look at that and I go, well, let's say germ theory. The history of germ theory is people had a lot of weird, crazy misunderstandings until somebody said, oh, germs are doing this to us. How ridiculous of an answer is that? All right. And so, or there could be, mental psychosis issues that are happening to people. And now we have little labels for it, treatment for it in a lot of ways. All this other stuff, where back in the day it was curses and all sort of stuff. So I don't look to humans for the answer of what the fuck is going on over here. I go, whatever humans are guessing, I think we have a terrible fucking track record. Sorry, with the F-bombs constantly. Whatever humans are guessing, I think we have a terrible track record of, I got to cut it out more often myself. We have a terrible track record of what's going on. And that's where I'm going. It's not that I'm trying to search for. I'm not trying to find the answer. I don't think I'll even know the answer, nor is the answer actually important to me. It's just really interesting. And I want to hear more and more and more of the religious describe it and talk about it so I can get this understanding, because the end of my knowledge is death, but I don't know if that's the end.
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, I see it the exact same way. I just wouldn't say religious, right? So you go through all this stuff, and the reason why we can know this thing is doing this thing the way that we interpret it is through agreements from other individuals, right? There are people who are outside of our own nervous system that are saying like, yes, this is happening as well, right?
Yeah, consensus. You have independent verification.
Yep.
So, Grim, when you were talking about the difference between like being an agnostic atheist and a gnostic theist, and like being gnostically a Santa Clausist, I think the closest thing that I can scratch it up to is like, okay, are you an acryptidist? And do you believe that there are no cryptids at all? Like, are you a gnostic acryptidist?
Yeah, gnostic acryptidist. Yeah.
Am I an acryptid? Yes, I am an cryptist. Yeah, cryptozoology is about cryptist creatures.
I mean, there are cryptids that have been shown to be real.
It would depend on the cryptids you're talking about, because the ones in my brain I'm thinking of, I'm going, well, like the spirits in the woods. I would say leprechauns, Santa Claus,
the Jersey Devil.
Yeah, so just because a large freakish of a shark came out of South Africa and somehow found its way up the Amazon, and people have stories and lore about it, swallowing men whole. I believe something happened, and I'm interested in the history and the truth of it. But I don't believe that, it's like a shark that like fell from the sky during a rain, biggest rain in the world or some shit. Like, there's all these stories that come about hey man, like you did this thing, and you're like, dude, you smoked way too much for that to happen. I
totally get your point now. Yeah, I totally get your point now.
Yeah. And I don't need all this evidence. I don't need evidence or logical thinking to think there's a shark there. I'll just go off the fact that everybody's pointing to a thing to just go, okay, I think there's a shark there, but I don't think I think there's a lot of ways that this could have happened. And I don't think you guys are coming up with rational ideas based on good science.
Okay, so are you saying that like the magical thinking part is the part of theism that you're rejecting on whole when you say you're a gnostic atheist?
Yes. It's like when you're talking to a religious person, it's like I don't want to equate it to talking like a child. I don't want to equate it to talking like a foreigner, but it is another language. It's like people are talking about their feelings, but they're using words and rationality that is just different, but it's still the same thing to me. It's just like I have to cipher it, right? Just like a teenager would tell me like hip cool things in the middle of their talking, like, yeah, he was so frill, and I was just like, back at you, bro. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm getting this for reals, like, in the same way as maybe a foreigner is trying to talk to you, and he's trying broken English, and you're kind of getting it. It's just this concept relation. And when they're saying like, I'm a believer because they're a believer, and they're all a believer and they're a believer, and you're asking them, and they're rational human beings and they're logical human beings, and you're going, damn, but you're still a believer. Like, you can meet your best friend, you can meet anybody in the world as just the coolest person in the world, and then just be baffled that they're a believer. And like, just like so smart, and like I need to step my game up because I met them and they believe in a God. That's weird to me.
Well, yeah, smart people can believe in unreasonable things. Patrick, did you want to discuss this thing that you brought up in the chat? Did you have a specific topic?
I would say, Grim, this is what's known as compartmentalization, right? There are very smart people who have very bad ideas. Let's just look at Hermann Göring for one.
Jesus, man. No, it's yeah, but it's not. We don't know which one's a bad idea or a good idea. And there's a lot of things that people like. I'm glad there's a lot of Christians who don't read their Bible. I know it's a favorite saying, but I am too. I'm glad there's a lot of watered down Christians that just kind of go with whatever the culture thinks a Christian should be, which is like, peace and love and respect. And so they kind of mimic it, where it's like, yeah, I like that style of it. I think it does help. I think that if I took, religion away from humanity tomorrow, it would be a really dark world. But I think that there's a lot of growing and understanding of what religion is, and the religions that even atheists have in their daily lives. We have our own religions. Following a sports team is a religion. Nah, man, the Bears suck, dude. And it's like, no, they don't. They're going to win every year for the rest of their lives. They're going to win every cup and every game. It's like, I know. But so there's a lot of real rationalization that's missing from humans, and it helps us. And it's not there, put there because it's a bad thing. It helps us. And we got to find those benefits of how do you feel in the dark? How do you search? What's intuition? What does my heuristics tell me? What am I finding out that evolution has really designed me for? And what, how do I make that make sense? If there's something there that I can kind of see. It's like it's like looking for a black hole, right? I don't look for black holes. I look for what's around a black hole to see if there's a black hole.
Fucking racist, dude. That's the most racist shit I've ever heard in my life. I cannot believe.
White holes are just blatant. White holes are blatant. They come right up to you, and they're the most brightest things. You don't even want to deal with them.
This guy's over here talking about black holes. What a racist.
Have you ever observed a white hole?
Show you a brown hole.
Do you have any,
Show you a brown
what's
hole.
it called? A peer-reviewed study about white holes? Any of them?
I have heard about white holes where it's like an extruding of matter.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. I was just going to say real quick, Scott. I don't think there's any real scientific papers on white holes. I think they're all. I'm not sure. That's a good question, actually.
I don't know where white hole is.
I think white holes are theoretical objects and not actually something that we know that exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, a black hole, we know they exist, but we don't know what they're doing. We don't know if it's assumed that there's a singularity in the center of a black hole, infinite mass, infinite density and infinite curvature of space. But we don't really know that,
So, and a white hole probably only lasts for like a Planck time. Boom, a universe is born,
look up
right?
white hole, Scott. Look up white hole for the audience.
I know. Yeah, I've got it up. It's like a white hole is just like expansion of energy and matter, like the same, like the opposite of a black hole, if you will, right? And so that's where I was going. Like a white hole would be something like the beginning of the universe. It would be something that would be like a Planck length of time. Boom, it happens, and everything expands from there. It wouldn't last. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah,
the Big Bang?
You basically, yeah. That's my understanding of it. I mean, I could.
Can you read?
Can
you read what? I was just going to say, can you read what maybe Wikipedia says about it, like the first couple of lines or something, just for the audience?
Yeah, in general relativity, a white hole is a hypothetical region of space-time and singularity that cannot be entered from the outside, although energy, matter, light, and information can escape from it. In this sense, it's the reverse of a black hole, from which energy, matter, light, and information cannot escape. White holes appear in theory of in the theory of eternal black holes, in addition to black hole That's just like the first line when you get down to like.
Yeah, just for the audience, remember that information to physicists is different than information to us. Information is talking about like background info that allows atoms to coalesce and turn into molecules. So
you know what I would call a white hole if I saw one? Probably a neutron star. You ever seen one of those suckers? Oh my god! You ever see a neutron star? It's like seeing a black hole. Get away from that thing. That thing will kill you.
Neutron stars are like some of the most dangerous things in the universe. They oscillate at like.
Dude.
I can't remember. It's ridiculous.
They can shoot. Their pulsars can go like 100 light years. Like it's nuts, dude. So it's like you're in the way that.
The good thing about them though is that pulse is like a one direction in a 3D environment. Yes. Yeah, so it's the likelihood of it hitting anything is very, very low.
Throwing darts.
Scott, real quick, is that different than quasar jets?
It's basically the same thing. It's like gamma radiation that's shooting off from pulsars and quasars, right?
It's a pulsar shot. Yeah, pulsar shots are nasty suckers, and the closer you are to a neutron star, the worse it gets.
Okay.
Pulsar star, and a quason star.
Yeah, and I think neutron stars spin the fastest. Like they are the fastest spinning thing out there.
I think that's
stars.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about with that's what I was talking about with oscillations. Yeah,
exactly. So it's just running like crazy. And if you know anything, that gravity, right, is just going to be intense.
Oh, it's super.
So if you take a collapsing sun into a black hole, then the opposite I look at it as a neutron star, where it's collapsing a neutron star. It's like the gravity is insane.
Dude, that's not even the dangerous part, though. You have like the amount of radiation that they shoot off of gamma rays, like if all of a sudden Earth was by chance in path of like a gamma radiation wave that was coming at us, everything on Earth would die like that. That's just is what it is.
It would. Yeah.
No. The radiation goes through everything. No, everything on Earth would die.
Yeah. I'm curious if we've done testing on asteroids or anything like that. If we've seen any pretty nasty blasts come through, we can get a good history on it.
I mean, it's just so few and far between that could actually happen. But yeah, I mean. Dude, quasars. Is it quasars? I mean, I think it's
quasars that I read is it's the disk, right? It's the heated up disk, and it creates jets out of the black hole. It's like an accretion disk that's spinning around it or whatever.
Yeah. Pulsar and quasar. Yep.
Those create that, and then they also. Yeah, that's a fun one. And then there's also...
Yeah, a pulsar is a highly magnetized rotating neutron star that emits beams of electromagnetic radiation out of its magnetic poles. A quasar is an extremely luminous active galactic nucleus. It's also sometimes known as a quasi-stellar object, abbreviated QSO. The emission of a AGN is powered by a supermassive black hole. Okay, so a quasar is like a black hole, and then a pulsar.
It's the stuff that the black hole is swirling. So as the black hole is moving and swirling it, it's throwing out bands of radiation like a sun would, but in more erratic and chaotic, as compared to a neutron star that is just sitting there spinning like a freak. And basically the north and south poles are like guns. And this energy is being forced up, like almost as if you like had water on a ball and you start spinning that ball really fast. That water kind of goes to the ball. Yep. It's just pulsing out of both sides, and it's constant or it's in bursts, and it's extremely powerful and destructive. But both are obviously powerful and destructive. But I don't know if we're so far away from our black hole.
Neutron star is a celestial object of very small radius, typically 18 miles, and very high density, composed of predominantly closely packed neutrons. Neutron stars are thought to form by gravitational collapse from black holes.
So have you ever heard of compound gravitational waves?
Oh yeah.
I think they proved those, right?
They did.
They have.
Experiment did it. The two black holes basically meeting each other warp space-time around them in such a chaotic fashion that they start folding space-time on itself. And we have no idea the implications of that thing when it comes to human life. We can see that every one of them is rippling on this weird frequency that our supermassive black hole has. But when they cross those ripple waves, when they're really, really close, and they're just like, and it's like humans are born in this frequency, and then humans have another frequency hit them.
Dude,
what does that do to you? I was like, oh god.
I don't know if you saw the recent news. So, like, apparently, like some of the hottest news in physics. Who knows if it's going to turn out to be true? Is that gravity?
That's the hottest news in physics. Am I right?
No, gravity does not require mass.
Gravity does not require mass.
Correct. So
hold on.
So this is the thing. So like, it's sort of like taking the notion of gravitational force and taking mass out of the equation, right?
Okay.
And this could be something interesting because it could give us
gravity. So you're telling me the gravity of a proton, for example.
No, I'm just saying like gravity is not based on matter at all.
Inertia,
right? Like it's
a figurative thing.
Well, inertia is just like you traveling at a speed and trying to stop.
Yes.
So this is a thing. Like if gravity is not based off mass, if gravity is not actually
same thing.
I'm just saying there actually is a mass there. There actually is a mass there for an electron. A neutron technically doesn't have any mass. I think the highest level of physics do state that like a neutron has some sort of finite level of mass.
Neutrons have almost as much mass as a proton, or a little bit more. One of the two.
Photon.
I just go back to that.
A photon. I'm saying photon, not proton. Photon.
A photon is massless. It's a point particle.
It's massless. Yeah, it's a point particle, and that's what I'm saying. He's talking about the gravity of a photon.
Oh, okay.
The gravity wouldn't influence photon. No. Gravity does influence photons like. Gravity does influence photons like gravitational lensing and shit like that. So.
Do photons influence other photons with gravity and gravitational mass? We don't see that. Photons
but that's because we've had this idea that gravity is controlled by mass. Gravity is a force that's traditionally understood as a displacement, right? A displacement of what? Dark matter, right? That's where we've had to, that's where we've had to go. So it's a displacement of something. So there's something pushing back on any specific amount of matter, right? That is what
I thought the most current interpretation was a bending of space-time, and mass or energy can do that.
That's the same thing, but it's always just like pushing back in. So this idea of gravity.
No, it's not. It's not even described as a force. It's described as warping of space-time.
What theory is this?
General relativity. The way, I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but that's
general relativity does not get around or does not negate the force of gravity. The force of gravity is like primary to the fucking theory of general relativity. I guess I don't know what you're talking about. Then
the equations hold on. The equations do match up in underlying field theory. So if you take gravity as a field theory, then it's an underlying measurement. So it's called pure gravity field, right? And it's forms of So it's like, so when you look at things on a quantum level, and you say something like a Higgs boson comes into sight, we don't really know where it goes, or it just pops into existence, we say, which is kind of a weird thing. But Higgs boson pops into sight, a field pops up, we see the field. The theory was, could there be a particle that's causing gravity, and so it's gravitational field theory, which I'm looking at the math in front of me, and he's right. It's different math that doesn't equate for matter.
Dude, even you're talking about even with Einstein. Let me just read this. General relativity, also known as the general theory of relativity, and as Einstein's theory of gravity, is the geometric theory of gravitation, published by Albert Einstein in 1915. Like, I get what are you? Where are you going and saying it's not gravity? I'm confused.
Okay, he was saying it's not necessarily a force, and that's kind of like it's something you can kind of argue over, but I think what's happening is because at first it seems like gravity is a force, like two magnets are producing a force pulling each other together or pushing each other apart, whereas gravity is not. Gravity seems to be working like it's like a three-dimensional impression, it's a four-dimensional impression on a three-dimensional like spatial plane, which is really hard to conceive.
Yeah. It's gravity is field theory, not a force, or not a force, because a force is kind of a placeholder saying, well, it's a force and we can measure it, but we really don't know what causes it. It's utilizing it under field theory. And I've heard about this from scientists for a while, but it was like, is there a particle that causes gravity, which was like the interesting, side of it. But yeah. So there is ways to do it using field theory math that you can just remove mass, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying. So you're going the Einstein route of saying gravity is not a force. I got it. Sorry, that was my bad.
I think that was the implication
there.
Pure gravity theories is what they're called.
Yeah, and I guess
doesn't mean there's not a force. Where do you get that from?
Yeah, and I guess that's the point where I come down. Mario is like, just like this is Einstein's theory, but it's not like something that's been proved yet. Like we just don't really understand what the fuck's happening with gravity yet.
Because Einstein was wrong about quantum, and that's affected his current mathematics. That's the issue, right? So it's like there is a grand unified theory there that I'm sure Einstein thought about it, but he disagreed with Schrodinger. He didn't agree with quantum field theory.
Oh yeah. I mean, to expect like all discoveries of like the universe have like stopped. No, of course not. Like at some point somebody's going to figure out like the way gravity actually works, and then we can like have like inertial dampeners, right? And that kind of shit. That's going to allow space travel. Like we can't have space travel without artificial gravity. That is a necessity.
They were in, I think it was Vienna, and Schrodinger went to Vienna, and he presented an argument, and he said, if I put a cat in the box and then I put a radiation vial in it, and if the cat moves, in the wrong position, he's going to break that radiation vial, and the cat's going to die.
Correct. You are correct.
And he presented that argument to one man, and it was Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein said, I don't believe in spooky positioning, is what he later wrote in a journal. I don't believe in spooky action, I think he said. I don't believe in spooky action, because it was like, there's no math for quantum, you're making shit up. And it's like, yeah, you're right. And to this day, he's right. There's no math for quantum, we're making shit up. But we're seeing it. But it is happening. It is happening for real. We just don't know what the fuck is going on. What the fuck is
exactly. Yeah, we just don't understand it yet. Right? It'd be the same thing of like, like humans 10,000 years ago not understanding when they like ate some food and threw the fucking remainders of that food on the ground, a tree grew. Like, well, what happened there, right? I mean, they just don't know yet. But that is what it is. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I have just I want to reaffirm, your point that I do agree on with you, whatever you just said. It's quite tough. It's so close to this thing in mathematics. This thing called it's defined as a imaginary number, but basically it's called a complex number.
Yeah,
it's just like a
number
bad.
Is a mixture of an imaginary and an integer.
Yes,
correct.
He's right. An example of imaginary would be what? The square root of -1?
Yep.
Yes. And it's just a bad description of something that we have come to understand much later on, after these presumptions that mathematicians have made. And in the same way, we have some very low understanding about the what we call today as how would we describe them? As going even further than quantum, like physics that have to do with anything related to quest work. That is like a heavy burden on physics. And I don't like to make that point, but I guess I like to say that theoretical physics have a huge burden from mathematics, and also mathematics have a huge burden from physics.
Yes,
nowadays,
indeed.
From theoretical physics.
They do. It's a paint. I call it paint by numbers.
Yes.
You want to know the picture of the universe is? You got to paint by numbers. Like,
I do. I do know this thing.
Do the math at some point.
Yeah,
but
and
so we've done 6-dimensional math already, and now we're having large massive quantum computers starting to work on 6-dimensional math. So think about that for a second.
We can work in very high dimensions with math, but
what's so special about 6 dimensions?
What's so special about 6 dimensions?
Yeah,
6-dimensional math is where as far as the math takes us. There's nothing that beats us. I know there's a lot of people think that there could be an infinite amount. People think that there's 10 or 11 or 12. And they're all trying to guess, but really 6 is about as far out that we know, and that's the manipulation of. Hold on, excuse me. That's the manipulation. That's the manipulation of space time, right? So
you're talking about time 6 dimensions to represent reality, not
so the math on space expanding itself is being done right now. That's the highest level of math you can go. If you go to any large major mathematical institution, Harvard, MIT, or Yale, or you go to over in England.
You can do whatever dimension you want. Math doesn't.
Yeah, you should do whatever you want. But 6 dimension is the highest they teach right now, and it's still being pioneered. It's nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Just to clarify, when you're saying 6-dimensional math, you're talking about only in its utility to this very specific problem. You're not talking about in general in math, right?
In general math theory, 6-dimensional math is being worked on right now, which is nuts. There could be 7, 8, 9, 10, but you have to do 6 dimension first, unfortunately. So
we've done math in the hundreds of dimensions. I mean, I don't know if we have every solution to every problem in hundreds of dimensions, but we have computer systems that work in hundreds of dimensions.
Provable math that is saying if I added X amount of energy and then I manipulated X amount of energy and I changed X amount of energy, then this is how space-time works. This is how it expands and fundamentally that theory.
Okay,
and so you have to think about the devices, and you have to think about the basic mathematic principles that are now agreed upon, right? By everybody, every mathematician that has done this math. So we come to the same conclusion. To go, what do you make off that? How does society benefit? And we clearly have computers, and we're making a phone call based off Einstein's work. So think about that.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that you're speaking about specifically with its relation to like these very useful things. Like we've done math in higher dimensions than 6. We've done it in like 100, 140 plus.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I don't know if that's been agreed upon about that math actually being true or not. We've had Michio Kaku has been trying to prove string theory, but his math, which I've seen, is, and I've done some of it actually, but it's, to me, I know where the physicists say it's broken, and that's when he starts to reach beyond in these other dimensions. He's
okay, but that's
hypothesizing that's great, but that doesn't work. So you can bring forward 150 dimensions, infinite dimension math. You can do all sorts of stuff, but I'm talking about agreed upon math, which now is being taught at the highest level to, trying to for professors and students that can actually get to this stuff. It is beyond insane. So but I'm talking about peer-reviewed mathematics that's being agreed upon. I haven't seen any peer-reviewed mathematics that's agreed upon that says, here's the math that proves that there's 150 dimensions.
No, not 150, like 11. There's like 11.
I've never seen the math agreed upon and proved. I've never seen that. Michio Kaku is the closest. Michio Kaku is the closest that has came to 11. He's the closest that has ever come to it, which was 11, and his work was not agreed upon by the consensus.
Okay, my bad. We were using different usages of that word. I meant like we can mathematically model things in multiple dimensions. And you were talking about like 11 like actual spatial, like physical dimensions. I'm talking about like mathematically we can model hugely in these other dimensions.
Yeah. We just don't know if that math is true or not. We don't know if that math is
real. It has nothing to do with its realness. Go ahead, Never.
Yeah. So the 11-dimensional thing is about commitments that are entailed from string theory, right? So whatever commitments in string theory imply that there's 11 dimensions, right? This is like theoretical physics. Mathematicians do prove things in higher dimensions, and there's even like interesting cases where things are proven of higher dimensional objects, and it's much later that we prove them about, let's say, 3D objects. And the Poincaré conjecture is like an example of this, where it's like proven for any dimension greater than 5, then eventually 4, then 3. But I mean, yeah, you can use an arbitrary amount of dimensions in mathematics, but mathematics and physics are kind of different things, right?
Yeah, and like when we're talking about dimensions in math, we often mean something different than this dimensions we're using in physics. So that's where I was getting my misunderstanding of what you were saying there, Graham. My bad.
So one thing you could think of is like arrays, right? So you have like 2D arrays or like matrices. Well, you could have an array of an arbitrary number of dimensions, like just a yeah.
Yeah, and actual real world physics were in 4D. I mean, that's the only way to really deal with it, right?
Time.
Correct.
Space and time.
Yeah.
Well, plus the expansion.
Yeah. We're in for like, I mean, that is the physical reality of the world we live in. It's 4D.
Yeah. So, but
this way.
That we can experience, like, right? But it might actually be 6D, like when we learn shit about fucking quantum mechanics that like changes the way things work. Who knows?
And that's insane. And to only study that and compute that is going to take also quantum computing, which is a crazy bit, and then just really good AI. Good software that's going to be able to manage this information. The one that they're building when it comes to collecting and capturing neutrons in the South Pole is the next step too. And I think that's going to give us good answers on what's happening, because there's a lot of stuff that what we are saying is like, I don't know about the gravity computation, but I do know that there's a lot of things like a neutron is just a very weird thing. And to start actually studying them, I think, is going to be our key component on actually how to get into the quantum world. And the neutron is that gateway for us. And so I'm glad we're starting to work on it. It's going to be a little longer, but hopefully that gives us a good door. And then, I would probably say a lot of people don't understand how the Cooper bond works. But there's some crazy stuff we can do once we bring things down to sub-zero temperatures and start playing with some of these things. And not a lot has really been done yet, but
we're 2,000 years. We're 2,000 years away from Star Trek. We're 2,000 years away from Star Trek. Not gonna lie.
I'm curious what is happening out into the deep, cold recesses of space. Because to me, it like just doing some experiments here on Earth, you're like, wait, physics breaks down. You're like, yep. You're like, yep, man, that's a whole nother ballgame. We'll figure that one out.
So, I mean, we don't even know what is on the other side of the bubble, right? Can you imagine if we can ever get outside or get some sort of measurement outside of the local universe? Fuck.
So easily. Really easily.
You get information outside of the local universe. Like, yeah, it's like you get a really high-powered fucking microscope, or telescope.
So a Cooper, a Cooper pair is just when, you get a superconductor very cold, and the electrons theoretically pair with each other, right? Is that what you're referring to?
I'm not sure if you're talking to me or the person talking before
whoever
you.
brought up Cooper bond. They're usually called Cooper pairs.
Oh.
That was me. I brought up the Cooper bond.
Well, did I kind of accurately describe that, or?
Sorry, I wasn't listening. My apologies. I was distracted.
No problem. It's basically when in a superconductor, once you get it very cold, the electrons tend to pair, or at least seemingly theoretically pair. And that's why we say that superconductivity works how it works at those lower degree or lower temperatures.
Yeah, and the experiment was that they shot an electron down the line. So they took these superconductors and they froze them, and I think it's like 30 Kelvin, and they shot an electron down the line. Now, if all the electrons, right, are all paired up and they can't move, right, you're seeing everything just like locked in position. How come the electron is still managing to have the same amount of speed coming out the other side? What's powering it? And the question was, we don't know. And there's no space-time there. And if you shoot that electron in a place where there shouldn't be any space-time, what does that look like? Except for the expansion of space, obviously. But what does that look like? And so to them, so the university did it up in Canada. They ended up immediately patenting it. And that was that. And we can know. Dude. So people are trying their own experiments and they're trying to figure it out. And they think with that, they found a way to start studying some quantum situations, because they're like, the power's coming from somewhere.
That's interesting. Yeah. Because if you could actually get like an environment with 0K, just 0 Kelvin, nothing would move, right? Because it's the definition of it.
Yeah, but if you launch something
it's heat death.
Yeah, if you launch
something into it, it's gonna raise the. Yeah, it'll raise the energy. Yep.
I feel like it's like peeling back a carpet and seeing what's underneath, and you've been on the carpet the whole time, and you're seeing what's this framework underneath that's been there, and you would have never guessed. You don't know what it looks like. It could be something weird, it could be something different, but it's definitely, if you start just connecting the dots, right? So that does that and that does that, it's going to look like this, like a form of strings. And that's why I think that's where Kaku's right, where he's like, it's kind of stringy, like you've got things popping in and out. Like, why is the photon jumping out over here, but then also still talking to this other photon over here? How does that work? And it's like, well, there's clearly something stringing them together underneath. And that's kind of why we see these visuals and people paint that in that direction, because it's like they're there's something there, and there are vibrations, and there are connections, and our brains and our minds can only physically see these things when it hits these certain levels of energy, and then that's it, and then we stop seeing shit. And unfortunately, we got to invent new technology in order to actually measure it, because we have no idea.
It's the fourth spatial dimension. That's what it is.
I mean, that's all we have evidence for, right? Is time.
No, I mean like literally a fourth spatial dimension, as opposed to X, Y, and Z added like another dimension. It would explain some things. It's all hypothetical, and you can't ever observe it. But
I thought, well, I'm sorry. Yes, I thought the fourth spatial dimension was time. Was the
that would be a temporal dimension.
It's like
I'm
different
honestly
dimensions
a little
of
confused
different
about this
standards.
stuff too, because I've like heard people say that really space time are the same thing. So it's space and time are the third dimension. Then I've heard other people say that time is like a fourth dimension that's distinct from space. But
well,
they're interconnected, but time is not spatial.
So I just looked it up. The fourth spatial dimension is a mathematical extension of the three-dimensional space that we experience in everyday life. It's often conceptualized as time, which is a way for dimensions to move forward. The fourth dimension is a fundamental part of modern physics theories, such as Einstein's general relativity. Okay.
I mean, it's still fourth dimension, but if you, if you Ant-Manned it, right, and you just went smaller and smaller and smaller, it's not like you're leaving the fourth dimension. Right? You're still in the fourth dimension. Right? You're just going into a quantum-based, right, principle still in that fourth dimension. I think the dimensions, the concept of dimensions exist on the surface, but once you start going deep and you start to find out these fundamental principles that are powering these dimensions, that's the engine. So I don't really know what to call that other than a quantum realm that we have no idea. It's like realm is almost used in a way of just saying it needs to be explored. We don't fucking know.
What I'm saying is, if you see two things in our three-dimensional world that are a meter apart from each other, that are communicating to each other instantly, then one of the most plain and obvious explanations for that is a literal fourth spatial dimension, not time, a literal fourth spatial dimension where you're folding this three-dimensional object in fourth-dimensional space, and those two spots, like a piece of paper folded onto each other, onto itself, is now connected from a fourth-dimensional perspective, even if we can't see it from our limited three-dimensional perspective.
yeah, I mean, I think that's like how the fourth dimension's talked about in geometry. Like you could look up
that's what I mean.
Tesseract, like a tesseract, right?
A Mobius strip.
Yeah, Einstein alluded it to when he said, Einstein said, when I reach out, I can touch my own shoulder. And so he sees his own back, and he'll reach out and he'll touch his right shoulder, and at the same time, he'll feel a hand touch his right shoulder. And it's him touching his right shoulder infinitely. So how's he able to communicate with himself? Because he can't. So that does make sense.
How do you do that? Come on now.
It's like it's kind of a trick. So, in fact, that was in Michio Kaku's first book, which I read, which was really good, and he described that concept really, really well, which is something I really enjoyed about what he did. Is he was able to describe some of these things in principle really, really well. Lawrence Krauss is another good one too. Lawrence Krauss, I appreciate his talks and how he can kind of really talk about six-dimensional math and how it's that expansion of space-time and how fast and rapid it expands, and the math that they were able to do and the quantum mechanics they were able to do is just beautiful. And it's like, holy shit. And his conclusion was that it's a 1-degree curve ball that we're on the inside of that's just rapidly expanding. We're expanding, it's expanding, we're all expanding, but that ball in the end is expanding larger and larger and larger. So It's almost like living inside of a tennis ball, and then, next thing you know, that ball, faster than the speed of light, grows bigger than a basketball, faster than the speed of light, grows bigger than a beach ball, so on, so on, so on. So just a trip. And you're like, damn, like that's, the ability to, if you have enough energy to literally control space-time, at least even locally, is insane. And that's what hopefully six-dimensional math can get us there, is saying we could create a machine with enough energy with enough self-powered energy, what they call 0 point energy, which I don't believe in yet, that says, you can work off the fundamental, you can power from the universe itself, and you can create your own little, black holes and wormholes, or maybe a box that slows down time, or maybe a room that speeds up time, like all sorts of weird shit. You're like, what the hell?
People that talk about using 0 point energy to get energy out of something, I don't think they necessarily understand what 0 point energy is. That's not. It's like assuming that free energy is actually free.
I've worked with companies and I will let you know exactly what they're saying.
ZPE is retarded. Let me just put this out there right now.
It's not retarded. It's a real thing.
ZPE is fucking retarded. No, it does not. It is true. ZPE is fucking retarded.
You don't understand. You don't understand, Scott. You don't understand. Let me hold on. Okay, so how much energy does a 0 point energy switch make if you actually know the answer? Want to guess?
Dude, how much energy does Donald Trump make in the asshole of Santa Claus?
Mr. I know. Come on, man. No, so there are real companies that sell 0 point energy. Hold on, man. Man. You gave me a false answer. Let me say my piece. So 0 point energy machines are real. These switches are real, but I have worked with these companies, and you can believe me, some random guy on the internet, or you can research them yourselves. I promise you, when I see the technology and what I've seen and what they've shown, is if you are in the middle of nowhere and you need to turn a switch, and I'm talking a small transistor with very, very, very little electricity, something where you couldn't even feel it on your finger, you couldn't even see it. That's what that thing does. You would be better off getting a solar panel. A Texas Instrument from 1982 with a solar panel on it produces 1,000 more times energy than that piece of garbage. Just
I'll tell you, like, go and find me even one single paper that can show that fucking ZPE actually works. It does not. Hold on. You might have companies that might be fucking selling you some sort of snake oil. No, 0 point energy does not fucking exist at the current time right now. Like, is there some time in the far future that we can tap into the fundamental nature of the energy that created the fucking Big Bang? I don't know. That's not what I'm commenting on. I'm telling you right now, there is literally no fucking ZPE systems. And if you think so, you're lost in the sauce.
ZPE is a misunderstanding. And so if you think that a 0 point energy system based on the principal mathematics that haven't been agreed upon is what's being used, that's not the case. But to say that you don't have energy capture devices that could just go off the energy that is around it, right, is not true. There are massive fields around you, and that's all this thing does. That's all this thing does, is it funnels, right? It funnels electrons. It builds up electrons, actually, based on random photons around them, random electrons, if there are random electrons, but that's rare that ever happens. It's actually technically pulling from the quantum world, but so is your toaster.
But it's fucking stupid.
They're not based on. Hold on, Scott. Let me finish my thought, please. It's not that hard. Okay, just one more minute. Okay, they exist, but it's not based on the theoretic principles and all these failed papers. It's just trying to gather energy based on kind of what's around it, which honestly, a battery and a solar panel will do a million times better than those things. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. I was gonna make the argument that we are pretty goddamn close to fusion energy. So like even worrying about fucking ZPE and all these kind of like weird fucking energy mechanisms doesn't even make sense when we're fucking this close to actually just having fusion energy, where we will actually get out more energy than the input based on the understanding of fusing hydrogen atoms together, right? You guys agree?
Okay.
No, because the facilities that are doing it spend 100 to 1,000 times more energy just to create fusion. So we don't know yet. We don't know if it's going to turn on and be self-sustainable. All we know is we can power it for a small amount of time, and we can go, hey, the mathematics are there, but in order to actually get it started, is going to cost a lot of energy, and we don't know the implications of it.
Yeah, but at least we could
to hold it in place, like it could be self-sustainable, but to the electromagnetic fields that are needed just to hold it in place is very energy costly. The lasers that are used to keep it going and then to start it are also incredibly costly, to the point where you have to do it in the middle of the night and shut down like parts of countries to do it. So.
Yeah, you can do fusion though. We've done pulsed fusion before. We've done it on Earth. What's not possible is harnessing energy, harnessing something's 0 point energy. That's not
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Because it's literally the minimum. Saying that you could harness something's 0 point energy is like saying that you could go negative Kelvin.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the companies that are selling 0 point energy. Is that it's not based on these failed papers, because those failed papers suck. This is based on just gathering energy around it in a very quantum way.
So you're saying it's a
quantum math
term.
Actually caught up with it. It's a bargaining term because it is true.
Okay.
It is because they can legally say yes, it is pulling from the quantum realm, but then I can legally say well, so is your toaster.
Okay, but someone selling a zero. Go ahead.
No.
Okay, what are you talking about when you're saying people are like selling 0 point energy? You can't take 0 point energy out of something and sell it. Like, is what you're saying like, oh, these people are claiming it's 0 point energy, but it's obviously not?
No, it's a device. Saying? It's a device.
What is it doing? What is the claim that it's doing?
It's the capability of like literally powering a very, 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 very tiny switch. So if you like a computer switch. So if you or like a gate, basically, if you had on like a circuit board. So if you were out in the middle of nowhere, you had access to no batteries, no sun, no nothing, and for some odd reason you wanted to tell a computer to turn on and start using a real power source for some odd reason, then that would be one. I really don't understand the need for these things.
But what does that have to do with 0 point energy? I don't know why you're bringing this very minuscule power source up.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's all it is. It's nothing burger. It's a big fat nothing burger. But I'm saying yes. These devices do exist. I just want people to be well aware that just ask people how much power do they actually produce, what do they actually do, what are they actually used for? Because a lot of people try to build machines around them. If I try to build machines around them, and then it's really weird because so it's just want people to be aware of that. But the other side of it is I don't know if fusion is a good answer either, because fusion, like I said, fusion is a hard nut to crack. And as much as we've cracked fusion in a way that we know that things can be fused, that's the equivalent of us saying, we know it's possible because we can stare at the sun. What we've done to mimic what the sun has done has been overwhelmingly costly in power already. And so it's not, there's no balance there. And I don't know what people are saying, well, there's a balance there. It's like you're going to have to use electromagnetic fields to hold fusion in place. And then you have to extract energy from it, right? And I understand that you want to take things like nickel and lithium and smash it together, but what?
We understand fusion is not a mature technology. I'm wondering, what the relevance is of this device that you're talking about to 0 point energy, because you're the one that brought it up.
I didn't bring it up.
The 0 point energy device?
I didn't bring up ZPE.
I brought that up.
You did bring up ZPE.
I didn't bring up ZPE. I don't care about ZPE. I'm mocking ZPE.
Okay,
Rewind the tape, stenographer. Anyway,
Dude, I'm almost 100% sure you brought up.
Well, somehow this started with God, so you explain it to me.
Somehow, yeah, that's how it always works. Like somebody said God, and fucking here the conversation is down,
and the bottom falls out.
God damn
Look at the sun.
That's funny.
Geez.
Yeah. I mean, fusion's exciting, but I've been watching, the labs and what they're doing and what we're doing here in America on the West Side, and it's nice. It's just their own words. We don't know yet. It's extremely energy costly. We have to shut off the Western Seaboard of power in order to actually do this at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Dude, everything is energy costly, dude. I mean, the amount of energy that it takes to go out and go to some place, find where there's oil in the ground, then dig a hole in that ground, put a pipe in that ground, start pumping oil out of that ground, putting it into a barrel, taking that barrel, putting it on a truck, taking that truck to a fucking ship, taking that ship to somewhere where they're going to refine it. They're going to refine that oil and then put it on another truck, another ship. Of course it's fucking costly, dude.
Well, that's needed. Well, most of that oil is used for products, and about 40% of it is used for gas. So the problem is we still need a lot of oil to go build things.
Just logistic systems.
It's weird. Yeah, those are hard.
That's just logistic systems.
Well, how are you going to move all that? It's going to cost more oil. No. But the other side too, I like nuclear. Nuclear is just stupid simple. It's like, well, how long is that going to make boiling water? 20,000 years. Like, all right. I guess the problem is, what do we do with it? It's like, that's probably the biggest problem with nuclear is what do we do with it, right? It's like, it's nice, it works, everything's great, fantastic, awesome. It could power, electricity to everybody for a very long time.
Yeah, dude. I mean, well, fusion is nuclear, but fission is also nuclear, and I'm down with fission and fusion.
Yeah, man.
Neither of them bother me. But the promise of fusion is pretty fucking insane, right?
It's a hard one.
You will get out.
Less dangerous, all better.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. There's no radiation involved. If like a fusion reactor goes out of control, there's no radiation.
Yeah. As soon as you stop confining it, it stops fusioning.
Right? Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like I said, the amount of power to pull off it will probably be just about probably less than what radiation puts out.
No. The amount that you get out of fusion is way more than the energy you put in. That's the beautiful thing about it. It's a fundamental. No,
what I'm saying is that it's going to.
Well, the cost is in the atomic structure, right?
The cost is in what it costs to hold it, the electromagnetic fields to hold it, and then you have to somehow draw power from fusion and still have it keep it enough energy to keep fusing. So it's we don't know that yet. That's what I'm saying. Yes, fusion is possible, but we also know that it's always been possible. We just now have the machines to do it, but sustainability, and then you also have to pull power off it to power whatever houses or whatever.
Yes,
that's a lot.
That's just an engineering fucking. That's just an engineering problem, right? So
if you say so,
obviously, somebody said, look at the sun, right? The sun is a fusion fucking machine. That's all it does. It is fusing fucking hydrogen molecules into helium molecules or whatever it is, going from like the 1 to 2 or whatever it is, then 2 to 3. It's just fusing atoms, right? And when you do that process, it releases a fuck ton of energy, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing that we have to do is we have to figure out a way to engineer to capture it. Exactly. So it's an engineering problem. It's not something fucking crazy, right?
And also, it does not need to be sustained. We're doing pulse fusion already, and it doesn't matter if we can sustain it for like an hour. What matters is we can sustain it long enough to get net energy, net power out of it. and then do it again, and then do it again.
But the cost to turn it on again and the cost to hold it might not be worth the cost of what it produces.
Yes, that's why I said net energy, right?
Yeah, and that's why they're like doing like, that's why it's still in the phase of people who are working on this as like theoretical ideas.
Scott, do you remember us talking about when the Scientific American article came out on how they did fusion at Berkeley or wherever they did it?
Yeah,
you and me talked about that.
Yep.
We have inertial containment fusion, which if you count the entire system, the lasers and everything, it cost more energy than we put in to get the fusion reaction, but it's inertially containned. What we want is what the sun does, which is like electromagnetic containment.
Correct.
And we don't have a way to do that. So that's the big problem.
Yeah, I mean that's an engineering problem. That's not a scientific problem.
Yeah, you're right.
And I guess that's the point that I'm making. It's like, I mean, if it comes down to an engineering problem, that just comes down to like I get what Grim is saying is the cost. Yeah, the cost right now might be prohibitive, but in the future it won't be, right? So at some point the cost will come down. It's like, oh no, let's just do it this way. And then we're going to have...
You also have to ask what's going to come first. Engineering a way to sustain fusion on Earth, or a way to just make a Dyson sphere? One of those is probably going to come first. It's a matter of...
a Dyson sphere is way later. Dyson sphere is like 1 million years out.
Well, I don't know. It sounds a lot more practical, because with a Dyson sphere, all we're doing is containing the power of a already existing fusion reaction. To make our own fusion reaction, we've got to make our own fusion reaction, make our own containment, and do it on Earth.
Yeah, but see, what you're not thinking about is the I don't know, the engineering aspect of transferring any sort of power that you would make out of a Dyson sphere, let alone the engineering feat of creating a Dyson sphere around a sun, but then being able to transfer
that. You don't make that. You don't make that thing on Earth. You don't
make a cable. Oh no! A Dyson sphere is like literally like these things that sit around the sun that absorb all the energy, but then you'd have to like transfer that energy to where you want it. I mean, the engineering involved in that. I mean, that's so far away.
Think of doing solar panels, but instead of doing them on Earth, just surround the sun in solar panel, and then somehow distribute that energy somewhere else.
Yeah,
I am very, very familiar about that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's getting to like a type 1 sieve, right? Type 1 sieve is when you're using all the power of the sun every year.
Yeah.
Yes. No, wait. Type 2 is where you're using the sun, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. Type 2 is the sun. Type 1 is using the power of the Earth every year.
Yeah, using full resource power of the Earth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kardashev scale, baby.
Yep, good old Kardashev. Look at us nerds over here. Oh man, what a bunch of nerds we are, huh?
Yeah, I like it.
I love being a nerd. I fucking love it.
A Type 3 civilization is genetically modified catfish.
Genetically modified catfish.
Cat boys.
Oh yeah.
Oh hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Talking about hot takes, huh?
Dude, what's your hot take? What's your hot science take? What do you got?
Science?
Yeah, what's your hot take? Yeah, come on now.
What is my hot take?
Evolution could be like a thing. Yeah.
I guess 11 is not enough. 11 dimension is that's not enough.
You gotta go further.
You gotta.
I'd say mine is thorium. That's it.
Dude, what is the 12th dimension? What does that consist of? Jesus.
Thorium.
How do you even conceptualize that?
It depends on how many thetans you have in Scientology. You think it's the 12th level.
No.
I think that's the boss level.
No.
I think that's the boss level. I'm pretty sure.
No. I don't know. It's not even a hypothetical, but it's like if you have multiverses, then you have something more than multiverses. What does that even mean? I have no idea.
Yeah. I sort of think so. It's like a multiverse. Like this, sort of the way I think about it. Instead of universes being stacked on each other, what if it's like this sense where we're in like a 4D world within the universe, right? So our Big Bang is like one specific bubble that takes place, but then there's bubbles all over the place.
Well, okay, you know what happens when you take a fourth dimensional object and you push it through a 3-dimensional world? You know what happens, right?
It ejaculates. I don't know what
expands.
happens.
It expands from the point of entry, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Huh?
Like almost like the Big Bang.
Because its initial point stays the same, and it keeps expanding infinitely from the initial point. Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I heard of like how a fourth dimensional object, like how it would look in a 3-dimensional world, if you pass a fourth dimensional object through a 3-dimensional dimension, you can't really say a plane, but if you pass a 4-dimensional object through it, it would just look like basically a growing sphere or a growing 3D object.
Yeah. So what if that's not the way it actually works though? What if like all the previous time moments ended? So being in that 4D world, instead of like starting at this point and you stayed there, and you stayed there, and you stayed there, you actually were eliminated from each previous point as you move through the 4D world.
What?
You know what I mean? So if we're talking about 4D, you're moving through time. So if we're talking about 4D and you're talking about like the 4D perspective of 3D and how time, the way it looks is like this specific point from the perspective, it looks like it just blows up. What I'm saying is that that's not what happens. Is all your previous states are repeatedly deleted, right? So it'd always be like the first point that you went into the 4D spectrum. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I'm not sure what the utility is of.
I just think that's what's actually going on.
How did you figure that one? Like, what makes, or how would you figure out that something is deleted? Somehow the state is like
I don't know. I guess I'd base that on my mental state, right? I mean,
it sounds like you're coming up with some sort of like fourth dimensional Last Thursdayism.
No. I'm trying to be clear about like what I'm saying here. God, I know the way I think about things is a little bit fucking weird. I get it.
No. Please go ahead, and please just we want to understand what you mean.
Yeah. So imagine yourself. You're in a 3D environment. This environment is 3D. This is a single snapshot of the environment. Boom. One Planck time in time. boom, that's a 3D environment. So this notion that's saying like 4D turns into a balloon out of it, I just don't think that's the case. I think every time you take a picture in Planck time, it's still just going to be this specific 3D subject, right? So to me, it seems when you're extrapolating out something 3D to 4D and it becomes a balloon, you're talking about all the possibilities of what can go on, as opposed to where that specific object is. And that's like not, don't even think about it as like a human being. Think about it as like a ball just being thrown or an atom, right? That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Are you actually
if you're passing?
asking?
Good.
Are you actually asking or proposing anything when you are describing it?
No. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, this is like, from all intents and purposes, this is what it seems like the universe is to me. Yes, that's all.
It does. It does seem like that. Yeah. I do agree.
Yep. That's all I said. Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm confused. So you're talking about like looking at our 3D world from Planck time to Planck time, like as a progression of Planck times. You're saying that that's the fourth dimension that you're perceiving?
No. I was saying the visualization of like looking at the fourth dimension as it's like expanding over time is not the correct way to look at it, right? Like, I think at each Planck link, this is the new thing, 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 right? So there's always the potentiality of like the balloon in front of you, but through time in and of itself, no.
Okay, so if you take
this is like determinism is where I'm going. As if you
take a piece of paper, right, and you take a ball, like a two-dimensional plane, a piece of paper, and a three-dimensional sphere, a ball, and you pass that ball through the paper, you get the cross sections of the ball, right? And if you were on the 2D plane, it would look like a circle getting larger and larger until you get to the diameter, and then it would get smaller and smaller. If a four-dimensional sphere is going through a three-dimensional volume, the four-dimensional sphere would appear in the three-dimensional volume once you're passing through it as a sphere, like as a real sphere, and then it would grow bigger and bigger and bigger until you get to the fourth dimensional diameter, and then it would get smaller and smaller and smaller. And what I'm saying is that the universe acts a little bit like that, at least the first part of it.
Oh man, but because I guess where I differentiate, I don't think there's a fourth dimensional parameter. I just think it is, right? So there's never a point where it's like you're getting up to the diameter or getting up to the point of the fourth dimension. No, it just is that, right?
Wait, what do you mean? I'm not sure what you mean by it just is that.
It just is, just like the same way, like, three dimensions are, right? There's up, down, left, right. It just is. I mean, time is time. It just is. I don't know how to.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's a fourth dimensional sphere of a finite size, then it has a four-dimensional diameter. Otherwise, it's not a sphere.
Perhaps I don't know.
Okay, is there a three-dimensional sphere without a diameter?
Yeah.
What?
I wanted to make a specific question that was something like in response. If you are approaching the end of the universe, and when you go 1 meter beyond the universe, where do you end up with? And that's basically the same thing that you just asked.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I just don't think that's a thing, right? So it's like a three-dimensional. Yes, of course there would be a diameter in a three-dimensional object. In a one-dimensional object, there will not be a diameter, though, right? That is just.
What about a two-dimensional?
There's a two-dimensional. There will not be a diameter either. It is just a line. What? A two-dimensional object is just a line.
No,
right?
a two-dimensional object has a diameter. It's like the diameter of a circle.
A one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Scott. A one-dimensional thing would be like a line or a point particle.
Yeah. Sorry.
So a two-dimensional thing would be a plane, like an X and Y.
Yes. Yep. Sorry, my mistake.
All right.
And like, I'm not saying that a four-dimensional object does exist, and I'm not saying the universe is a four-dimensional object. I'm just saying it does seem to me that if the universe was somehow a fourth dimension, or if the thing that we're expanding into could be like resultant of a fourth dimensional thing, some sort of fourth dimensional sphere or complex shape expanding into a three-dimensional volume. Is it what's happening? I don't know, but I'm saying it's possible.
I mean, like 4 dimensions obviously seems to be the case. I mean, we have time; things change over time, right? Like,
no, I mean for spatial dimensions. I don't mean
he's talking about dimension geometry, Scott.
Yeah, I mean like for geometric dimensions. Sure, there's probably time is definitely a dimension on top of all this, but.
I get what you mean, CJ, of the 4-dimensional sphere traveling through the 3-dimensional volume. I get that, and that seems intuitive. But I don't even know if the 4th dimension can geometrically can interact with the 3rd dimension, because technically, like a tesseract, if you look at a wall right now, you're seeing a 2-dimensional representation of something that is not 2-dimensional. You're looking at a wall. You're seeing an X and Y axis. If you're looking at a 4-dimensional object, it seems as though you would see the wall as 3D. And I don't even know what that means. Like, it's like putting a right angle on a right angle on a right angle. You can't.
Have you ever seen someone like show what a world would look like for a character in a 2-dimensional world versus how we see it in 3 dimensions, where humans can see in 2 dimensions, but a hypothetical 2-dimensional being could only see in 1 dimension?
Yeah, that's correct.
So, like, 2-dimensional beings can see in a line, 3-dimensional beings can see in a plane, 4-dimensional beings, theoretically, if the rule follows, could see in 3D. Now, is that very hard to comprehend? Yeah, we can barely comprehend a tesseract as is, but I don't think it's impossible or improbable that something could be in the 4th dimensions and perceive things 3-dimensionally. I don't know what the would look like.
I would agree on that point, but how would we know?
Yeah, so do you think somebody who is like in the 2-dimensional world could understand what a 3-dimensional object is then? Right? So that's what you're postulating. And to me, it's like, I just don't know if that's the case. I just really don't know if that's the case.
I mean, you could probably show them over time. Or as you could probably break up a.
No. But you're talking about a 3-dimensional being could understand the idea of 4D based off this idea of. I'm sorry. God, you said somebody who is 2D could only see something in 1D.
Yeah.
And somebody who's in 3D can only see something in 2D?
Yeah, like, if you think about it, your vision is more like a screen than anything else. Your vision is literally just... Yeah. You could make an XY plot of your vision, and it would be valid.
Exactly. But then how would somebody in the 2D world ever, really postulate what is in a 3D world? Right.
Well, someone in a 2D world, right, could they see everything in one dimension, and they know as they move around this dimension, the line that is their vision, it would just be like a line up and down within a specific bound. Whenever they move, that line changes. So, like, if they're looking at a black and white screen, they can move X and Y, and they could theoretically stack information like that, theoretically, and they could make a 2D object out of that. And then if they can do that, they can do 3D.
Yeah, I see where you're going. Yep.
Almost like a barcode. You can get more information out of a barcode than 1010 just by stacking the information over and over.
Yeah, I think us humans are quite a ways away from that ability. Not gonna lie.
Yeah,
the ability might be theoretically possible, but yeah, I think we're pretty far away from it.
Yeah, every step removed from our actual vision is going to be more difficult. Like, we already have issues as it is perceiving things in 3D. When we start perceiving things in 4D, it's like we can't see it like that, but we could theoretically, like, when I think of an apple in my mind, I can see the whole apple, right? I'm kind of projecting it as a 2D image of an apple, but I know the whole apple as a composite image.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a concept of the apple. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just reaffirming that almost everyone, if they don't think about it, they actually do know how things work in 4 dimensions. When you take a bite of an apple, that state of an apple is different before you took that bite of the apple.
Yes, exactly. And I guess I guess that's a thing, because Petrie, I think me and you are going to the same place of thinking about it in physical terms, but I think Bucky was going down the lines of mathematical terms of dimensions.
I think we're using the same thing. We're just looking at it from different dimensions.
Yes.
Just looking at it from different dimensions.
Yeah. It's tough for me because I don't know which point I'm approaching it from. I do like maths and physics, all the same, but on this specific conversation, I think I did agree more on the physical side, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I fall in this one too. It's like you've got 3 dimensions and you have time. That's going to be 3-dimensional space plus time. Things change over that time period. Yeah. Hence, when you take a bite of an apple, you recognize that apple has had a bite taken out of it.
I agree with that too, by the way. I don't think that is necessarily what do you call it? Dispositive of my proposition of the 4th dimension.
Yeah.
4th dimensional object.
That's the thing. What is your proposition? Who gets to decide the I don't know how to call it, the
truth of that proposition?
Observation that changes the reality. Who gets to call what is reality, and who gets to call what has changed in reality?
I would like to say people much smarter than me, but in reality, it's probably just group consensus, right?
Yeah, it is group consensus. 100%.
The words are going to change. The words are going to change, but the math won't.
I love that.
But what he said about fourth dimension as far as quantum positioning is interesting. So I haven't thought about it like that.
I'm not sure if I said anything about quantum. I do like the topic and the way the discussion is heading towards. I don't know if it's heading towards anything, but I'm not sure if I heard correctly.
You can head towards whatever you want it to head towards, I suppose.
I have no idea. I have no idea. Let's see.
I mean, I've got a topic I like talking about all the time, but...
Oh, please, go ahead.
Look in the chat. If you guys want to talk about it, ask me a question about it. Otherwise, someone else come up with a topic.
Really? I'm not so sure. It's a bit different about theoretical physics.
It's very off topic, yeah. That or has anyone watched the Ben Shabibo thing where he goes off against 25 Harris supporters? Oh. Alright, well, no one in the YouTube live chat has given a topic either, so. All right, I'm gonna go watch Jupiter Exiles video on Ben Shapiro. Have a good one, guys. Good night.